2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center in beautiful San Antonio. This is day number 1 of the Zach Gelb Show here at Westwood One's Radio Row as we come to you live for the Final Four. You know the matchups by now. You got Duke and Houston. You got Auburn and Florida as well. We have made it to Texas. I got my cowboy hat on, not the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, to be clear, like an actual cowboy hat on, and we're going to be here all the way up until 5 p.m. Eastern, or 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 375, the free Odyssey app, and of course, always streaming live on YouTube. We have a loaded, and I mean a loaded show for you today. Coming up 20 minutes from now, from the Wisconsin Badgers, their head basketball coach, they made the second round of the NCAA tournament. Greg Gard is going to join us at the top of the hour. Live on set is going to be Seth Greenberg. Dennis Gates later on in the program from Missouri will join us, and then a good friend of the radio program, Porter Moser, formerly of Loyola Chicago, now the last few years with the Oklahoma Sooners, finally made the NCAA tournament there. He's going to stop on by as well. Stu and I had a adventurous first night in San Antonio. First off, though, let me tell you that our broadcast today is brought to you by Werner, the official ladder of NCAA March Madness and the official ladder of construction professionals everywhere. Conquer new heights with Werner, available nationally at the Home Depot. So Stu and I used yesterday as a travel day because there were not a lot of flights. I think there was one direct flight from Newark, New Jersey to San Antonio yesterday. So we got on that flight, I don't know, about like 12:30, and it was on time, no problem. The only problem is I was short on the flight, and I'm 6'4". I think every basketball coach and their mother was on this flight to San Antonio, and media members too. You know, I saw our buddy, the great John Fanta, as we were walking right onto the airplane. And thankfully, Joanna here booked me in the seat that I did, was booked in, because the seat behind me was Stu, and to the seat next to Stu, in a middle seat, was a 7'5" human being. I'm like being a little bit, exaggerating, but Stu, he had to be, 6'8"?
He was massive. He had to be close to 7 foot.
At one point, the guy sitting next to him said, "Sir, we'll switch seats." So this was a jam-packed flight. We got to the hotel last night, beautiful hotel, wonderful accommodations. We once again thank Westwood One. And then when I was in high school, a buddy of mine, and he's a twin, so his parents, they knew they were going to come here to Texas, and they were eventually going to go to UT. His parents, our junior year of high school, to get the in-state tuition, they ended up moving to San Antonio. So I've heard for over a decade of this restaurant that they opened up, which is a New York-style diner called Max and Louie's. I've heard about it for years. So Stu and I last night ate with the owners, who are my friend's parents, and Andrew and Wendy, and the meal was phenomenal. I thought, first night in San Antonio, we would get some Tex-Mex. I thought maybe a little barbecue as well. Stu and I, like a bunch of pigs, as we're sitting here in every Uber that we get into. So what's the barbecue spot? Well, where's the good Mexican food at? What should we go to? And the Uber driver on the way there to Max and Louie's was like, "This is one of my favorite spots in town," because it's something different. It's a New York-style diner. So usually the New Yorker coming to town, I wouldn't eat at a place like this. But since my friend's parents own it, I'm like, oh, I have to go. And the food, and first off, the place was happening. The place was packed. The food was to die for. I had a triple-decker. Fat Zach was back last night. I had a triple-decker burger pastrami sandwich. It was phenomenal. Stu had an open-faced pastrami and corned beef sandwich, and then we also had some onion rings, some noodle kugel, and if you think we didn't have enough food then, Andrew said to us when we were getting up, "Oh, by the way, right next door, adjacent to Max and Louie's, I opened up an ice cream shop." And we had, what was it, Marlem, what is it? What was the ice cream called?
Melamo, because it was after Mel.
Yeah.
But it's like it had like marshmallow, graham cracker, and chocolate. Very, very, very good.
It was tasty.
Very tasty.
And then we got dropped off, it was the Pear, I'm pretty sure,
yes,
which was an unbelievable little cocktail bar. Stu and I had a drink or two. Don't worry, the company will expense it. And then we elected to walk down the Riverwalk. Now, you get told when you go to San Antonio, welcome everyone, Zach Gelb to San Antonio, because I'm about to offend you. We get told you got to go to the Riverwalk. So Stu and I, we ate like pigs. We're like, we could walk, even though I got my workout in the morning, let's just go walk down the Riverwalk, see what it's all about, see if it's happening. It was a 2.5 mile walk, Stu.
Yeah.
For us.
Like 30-something minutes, I'd say, about.
To get back to the hotel. Stu wasn't winded. He wasn't sucking air, so he was good. We walked down the Riverwalk. Is it any different than the West Side Highway with the Hudson River in New York City? A little bit of a hot take right out of the gate. Riverwalk? Tad overrated. But I'm told how wonderful that the Riverwalk was. So I'll go back there during the day and see if it's a little bit better. But for the first test of Zach Gelb in San Antonio, Riverwalk, not that special, if you ask me. And I'm sure Awful Announcing or some website, Barrett Sports Media, will write up that I'm now in a feud with San Antonio. So we had a very good night last night. Once again, I wanted to thank my friends Andrew and Wendy, and just phenomenal Max and Louie's meal. And they fed us right. And now Stu and I will probably eat thousands and thousands of more calories throughout the next few days. But anyway, I got to start the show with this. So a little breaking news right out of the gate. Geno Smith has signed a 2-year contract extension with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Stu, your football team, they traded for Geno Smith. You got the Pete Carroll relationship, all fine and dandy. when he was traded there, I thought the extension was going to be announced immediately. That was not the case, so he was playing on the final year of his contract. I guess no surprises that they finally got, and I don't have a number for you in terms of dollars, but no surprise here that Geno Smith got a 2-year contract extension. I guess they were working close to getting a deal done in Seattle, and then something broke down, and it seemed like it was more on Geno Smith's front, but you never know. Maybe Pete Carroll called and said, hush, hush, wink, wink, we'll get you back with the Raiders. But now it's a 2-year contract extension for Geno Smith with your Raiders. Your immediate take is what?
Yeah, and according to Schefter, it's a 2-year, $75 million extension.
Oh, wow.
That could be worth up to $85 million and a half. So they're paying him like a franchise quarterback. He's going to get like $40 million a year almost. They're paying him like that.
37.5.
Yeah.
Right? Is 75 divided by 2. Thank you to the calculator.
I don't know if they are going to draft a quarterback
That's
with that
immediate
6th
take.
pick if they're giving Geno Smith this kind of money for a few more years.
Well, here's the flavor of the week, and it's only Thursday. The flavor is that Shedeur Sanders, I guess, is going to drop in the draft. So this is Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show on the ESPN the other day, talking about the possibility of Shedeur Sanders dropping.
It certainly feels like the Cleveland Browns are inclined to look elsewhere aside from quarterback. And it's starting to feel like the New York Giants at number 3 are starting to look elsewhere other than quarterback. So if the Browns don't take Shedeur Sanders at 2, and if the Giants don't take Shedeur Sanders at 3, and that is the feel that I'm getting recently, where is Shedeur Sanders going?
I love Adam Schefter. I do. But I'm actually very annoyed at Adam Schefter. And Stu, I think you're annoyed at Adam Schefter as well, who I love Shefty, to be clear. He put our brain through just unnecessary drama, and I still can't get over the fact that he originally said before the Combine that the number one thing in this draft that he was most confident about were the Cleveland Browns taking a quarterback with their first round selection, the 2nd overall pick in the draft. He has obviously since walked that back. He has walked down the riverwalk of that take in the other direction that Stu and I were going in last night. Now, okay, it's one thing to walk it back on Cleveland. All right, maybe Cleveland will take Travis Hunter. Maybe Cleveland will take Abdul Carter. Cam Ward probably going number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. But what world are the Giants living in? Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, your careers in New York are on life support. Life support. You need to provide hope. You're not providing hope heading into this season, or even something that you could tangibly hold on to at the end of the season for building into the future if you get through this season, in rolling on out there and trotting on out there Russell Wilson and the backup being Jameis Winston. A popular in terms of personalities a quarterback room, but not in efficiency with their play on a football field. So if I'm the Giants and you get this gift of Cam Ward, number 1 overall, going to Tennessee, and then 2nd overall, whether it's Abdul Carter or whether it's Travis Hunter going to Cleveland, and then the Giants are sitting there at 3 and they pass on Shedeur Sanders, what are the Giants doing? Like Schefter said it, I'm starting to get the feel that the Browns aren't going to take Shedeur Sanders. And then I'm starting to get the feel that the Giants won't take Shedeur Sanders. Well, I'm starting to get the feel that if the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants both pass on Shedeur Sanders, and you have Kenny Pickett, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, whoever starting for Cleveland and Big Blue, that both of those teams for the 2026 NFL draft are going to be right in line towards the tippy top of the draft once again, looking for a quarterback. It's just as if they're going to punt on the quarterback. I think that Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are the 2 best players in the draft. How many times I got to say it? The Cleveland Browns absolutely should draft Shedeur Sanders. They don't have hope right now at the most important position, not only in the NFL, but in all sports. And then if the Browns pass on him, what are you waiting for if you're Joe Shane? What are you waiting for if you're Brian Daboll? You wanted Jaden Daniels last year, you couldn't get him. You wanted Drake May last year, you couldn't get him. You had to run it back with Daniel freaking Jones. So now you get it a little bit better because you have Russell Wilson, who is a fine quarterback, but is Russell Wilson selling any long-term hope to the New York Giants organization. The only person that Russell Wilson is selling long-term hope to is to himself. So take Shedeur Sanders. But here's the other wrinkle, Stu, that goes into this. Let's play the Schefter game. All right, Adam Schefter, you're starting to feel that Cleveland's going to pass on Shedeur Sanders. You're starting to feel that the New York Giants are going to pass on Shedeur Sanders. Let's assume, you know what happens when you assume, but I feel pretty good about making an ass out of you and me on this one if it doesn't happen. Cam Ward going number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. So after that, New England's at 4. They don't need a quarterback. The Jaguars are at 5. Whether you think they need a quarterback or they don't, they have Trevor Lawrence. So then the Raiders are sitting there at 6. Now, Stu, there's been a lot of buzz about the Raiders taking Ashton Genty. Even have John Spytek, the general manager, saying, my own kid basically is telling me he's going to find a new father and find a new team if you don't draft Ashton Genty. And I'm the biggest fan on the national radio landscape of Ashton Genty than anybody. I talked about him before all these other talk show hosts even knew who Ashton Genty was. But if the Raiders are there at 6, and let's say the number 1 pick is Cam Ward, the number 2 pick is Travis Hunter, the Giants go Abdul Carter, just spitballing here, Will Campbell, alligator arms, but I'm fine with those alligator arms if they land in New England. If let's say that Mason Graham goes to the Jaguars and you're sitting there, the Raiders are there with the 6 overall pick, Goodell walks up to the podium, boo, you suck, Roger, even though Roger Goodell is the best commissioner in sports right now, which I still can't believe that I say it, but that's the reality of the situation. I'm fair, even though if I don't like someone. But let's just say that the 6th pick is there and the Raiders take Ashton Genty because they just gave this 2-year contract to Geno Smith, and they do not take Shedeur Sanders. Your reaction would be what?
I will be kind of disappointed because although they do have a decent quarterback, I felt like the whole time, this whole season, I felt Shedeur is a franchise-altering quarterback. And if you're gifted him at 6 and you pass on him, I think that's a mistake.
And then if he does fall past 6, where is he going? The Jets just signed Justin Fields. The Saints, I think they'd be fools if they pass on Shedeur Sanders. I still don't see, I'm not buying that he falls out of the top 10. I still think he's going 3 to the Giants. I think the Browns should take him, but I'm believing the smoke that they're going to pass on him. But I still can't live in a world that even if I'm wrong and the Browns and the Giants, they end up saying, thanks but no thanks, we'll go with Travis Hunter, we'll go with Abdul Carter. I still can't put myself in a world where the Raiders are going to sit there for Geno Smith, who's a fine quarterback. He's like the 15th best quarterback in football. At times he looks like he could be the 12th best quarterback in football. But in that range, right? And Geno, even though he didn't play for basically a decade, he's in his mid-30s now. He's getting older and older and older. I can't imagine that just because they gave a 2-year contract extension to Geno Smith, that they're going to sit there and say, okay, we're now going to pass on Shedeur Sanders. That would be a mistake by John Spytek. That would be a mistake by Pete Carroll and also Tom Brady, who has a personal relationship with Shedeur Sanders. I still think it would be a mistake. So here's how I read into it, Stu. Maybe we're going against everything I've ever said. Maybe all this stuff that's out there, the Browns are going to pass on him. The Giants are going to pass on him. And usually Schefter doesn't get this stuff wrong. Maybe even Schefter's falling for the bait. Maybe even Schefter is falling for the smoke because I knew that eventually the Raiders would have to extend Geno Smith. But them doing so after waiting and then getting back in and doing this right now, maybe they don't think Shedeur is going to be there. But even if he is there and they do take him, 2 extra years to Geno Smith when Shedeur is on a rookie contract is not something that prevents me, at least, in taking Shedeur Sanders in the draft. And I know the Browns could say, oh, well, they just traded for Kenny Pickett. There's rumors on Kirk Cousins. If you're bringing Kirk Cousins, all right, maybe it prevents you from taking Shedeur Sanders, but he's not there yet. The Giants, I don't care that they just gave a small contract to Jameis Winston. I don't care that they just gave $20+ million a year to Russell Wilson. That's nothing. Nothing for the quarterback position. And also, Shedeur Sanders will be making literally next to nothing in his salary through the first few years in the NFL with how the rookie scale is. So, Geno Smith, 2-year extension with the Raiders. And according to Adam Schefter, it's starting to feel like the Browns and the Giants are going to pass on Shedeur Sanders. And then I simply say this. Well, if you do that, it's starting to feel like the Browns and Giants will be going through regime changes, and also the Browns and Giants will probably be picking in the top 5 for not only the 2025 draft of this year, as they're 2 and 3, but also the 2026 draft coming up next year. All righty, Zach Gelb here with you. We are live in San Antonio, day number 1 on Radio Row. We'll come on back with the head men's basketball coach at Wisconsin, Greg Gard. Seth Greenberg going to join us live to kick off the next hour. We'll also be joined by Dennis Gates and Porter Moser as well. Off and running, Final Four, Westwood One, Radio Row, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, welcome back in from the Convention Center, Westwood One Radio Row, the 2027 X15 engine from Cummins, featuring better fuel efficiency, immense power, and backed by 25-plus years of experience. The 2027 X15 is built to rise above the challenges of tomorrow. The X15, forever rising. And now joining us once again on Radio Row, who stopped by last year, had a very good conversation, head basketball coach with the Wisconsin Badgers, and that's Greg Gard. Coach, great to see you. How you been?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. You know, I get to enjoy myself. I get to come to San Antonio, you know.
Pull out, dust off the hat.
Yeah. You like the hat?
Yeah, I like the hat.
You know, go get all the great food and drinks and all that stuff. But you college basketball coaches, man, it's portal season for you guys.
It is portal season. Although you get to do it here in San Antonio, it's all remote anyway. We're in a dead period, so I can do the same thing from here that I could back in Madison. But San Antonio is always one of ours as a college basketball coaches community, favorite places to come for a Final Four. Obviously, the weather doesn't hurt, how it is right now, and obviously the locale and be able to walk to everything. It's a good spot.
So for you, because you've seen college basketball through so many different eras at Wisconsin, how are you guys adjusting and adapting? Because you either got to adapt or you're going to have to get out of the sport because for me, for so many years, coaches, NCAA, everyone got a piece of the pie, and now it's the players' turn to get their money as well.
Yeah, and I'm all for that. I think that move has been good. I think just in terms of how you adapt. I've always said around our program, you either run to it or run from it. So we've chosen to run to it in terms of not only the NIL and the portal, but also how we've evolved as a program, specifically offensively. We've changed some things. We've evolved, and we scored over 80 points a game this year at Wisconsin, the first time that's been done since 1970. So just how the game has changed with the officiating and knowing that if you want to be playing at this time of the year, this weekend specifically, you have to be able to score, and to do those things, we felt we needed to evolve and change some things, and by at the same time still staying true to who we are and our anchors to our pillars that have made us so good for almost 25 years now. That Wisconsin year in and year out has been one of the most consistently successful programs in the country, and but you got to continue to adapt and grow.
You guys made it to the Big Ten championship. That was a brawl between Michigan at times in the second half. I thought I was watching a football game.
It was
You got to the second round of the tourney, and BYU was just on fire in that first half from three. How do you kind of look back at the season you guys had?
A great year. We were picked to finish 12th in the Big Ten. We finished 12th in the country in terms of the last seeding ranking. We weren't supposed to be in the NCAA tournament at all. We ended up being a 3 seed, so really good year. You always remember the last one. We were a really good offensive team, top 10 in the country most of the year. So was BYU. We just unfortunately met them in the second game, and obviously they can really score and have really good players. And by the time we got our kind of feet underneath us defensively, the hole to dig out of was a little too deep. That we got close. We had the last shot to be able to tie it or win it. But all in all, a really, really good year. Great group of guys. Obviously, we led by John Tonje, who was one of the nation's, if not the nation's, best transfer, and just how he came in from day one and fit with our other returning guys and newcomers. It was a really, really fun team to coach, a fun team to be around every single day.
So when I first think of Wisconsin, and it's like, give me one word, I think of tough. I think of a tough basketball team. In this new era now where you could just get into the portal so quickly, and you've talked about some of the changes, but the way that you may ask something as a kid, does that at all change with knowing that, okay, if you're too hard on a kid to get that toughness, that they could easily just walk out of the program?
No, it really hasn't. I've always thought that the really good ones want to be coached. They want to be told the truth. They want to be held accountable. The average ones don't, and we want the ones that want to be really good. And for really, Zach, the the players over the years haven't, and I've been doing this almost 35 years,
Yeah.
the players haven't changed. Everybody says, well, the kids have changed. No, they haven't. The externals around them have changed. Social media, NIL, portal, people that are, around them, their circle, so to speak, their accessibility to the general public, that has changed. But, the 18 to 23-year-old, or in Tanjay's case, I guess 24, they're still young men going through that phase of life. And the reason I really have up close, I got my own son on the team.
Yeah.
So for me, I get to
a little more personal.
I get to wear both hats. And
do you enjoy that experience, coaching your kids?
I love it. Love it. It is unbelievable. I mean, I talked to Tom Izzo before I decided that Isaac, my son, was going to be on the team. He had, obviously, Steven on his team. Brad Underwood had his son on the team, and it just
Ron Hunter. I remember RJ Hunter in the tourney.
Yeah, there's been a lot. Obviously,
the
Fran
Drews,
McCaffrey.
obviously.
Yeah. So it's great. As a coach, you sacrifice so much. Your family has to sacrifice so much, and I missed a lot when he was growing up. You try to be there as much as you can, but you're never going to get the quantity that you want. So for this was an opportunity where he had chances to go play at smaller schools, lower levels. And he said, "Dad, if I can do this with you, let's do it." So
that's awesome.
It's been awesome. He's been a terrific teammate, just one of the guys, and I don't treat him any different. I'm probably a little harder on him than most, but it's been it's a once in a lifetime experience.
But you're right, Greg Gard. So my dad, worked in radio. He still does, and the accessibility now. They used to get fan mail, hate mail.
Right.
So if someone didn't look at the mail, you never got it. Now. I grew up with the phone in my hand. Your kids have as well.
Absolutely.
You go on Twitter, you go on Instagram. Even when you're watching an NCAA tournament game, they talk they have a commercial this year. Don't send hateful messages to players. If you're mad that you lost a bet or whatever it is, it's tough to block that out. But then also, I get disgusting messages. I think you just got to kind of realize it's some nameless person that's just trying to tear you down.
And in days gone by, they would sit at the corner bar drinking their old Milwaukee, yelling at the TV. Now they have their phone and they can tweet and they get a microphone to the world.
Yeah.
So, it has changed. You have to filter it. You have to take it with a grain of salt and not let it consume you. But it's real. There's no doubt. And you just try to do the best with not only your own self, but obviously I'm more concerned about our players and making sure they understand that it has its place and keep it in its place. Don't let it wander into a place that doesn't belong.
I think the coaching matchups here are really fun because you got some of the older guard here in Bruce Pearl and Kelvin Sampson who have just tremendous redemption and revitalized their careers. And then you got John Shire, Duke legend, and now coaching at Duke, trying to win a championship. And then you got Todd Golden, who got coached by Bruce Pearl in the Maccabi games, worked with him. It's a kind of a fun feel with two different eras of college coaches here.
It is. I think you see, and Bruce and Kelvin's, Kelvin stayed true to who he is. He still coaches his kids hard, and Bruce does as well. So I've known them both for a long time, and both do terrific jobs, and obviously know John and don't know Todd as well, but it will be. They'll tell you, and any coach will tell you, it's about the guys that are running around in those jerseys that really make those coaches. They all four of them have really, really good players, and obviously that's why they're still dancing here this weekend.
Well, always great to see you. Good luck this upcoming season, and appreciate what you said about your son. It was a pretty cool conversation.
Sounds good. Thanks, Zach.
There he is, Greg Gard, joining us from the Wisconsin Badgers. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on Westwood One Radio Row, live in San Antonio. Seth Greenberg going to stop on by. Oh, he's right here. He's coming up at the top of the hour as well. Maybe we'll get him on a little early. We'll see what's happening. But let's do this. We'll send it back to our New York City studios right now first, and standing by with the latest sports update, here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Your small business keeps you on the go. Progressive Commercial Insurance keeps your policy within reach with their easy-to-use mobile app. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com. Geno Smith's reunion with Pete Carroll is going to stretch beyond this year. The Raiders have reportedly signed their new quarterback to a 2-year extension worth $75 million, and it can reach as much as $85 million. After Dak Prescott's season-ending injury last year, the Cowboys need a backup quarterback and acquired one, picking up Joe Milton from the Patriots along with a 5th-round pick in exchange for a 7th rounder. The Cowboys also needed another quarterback after Cooper Rush left for the Ravens. Baseball action this afternoon, a pair of games, and right now heading to the 9th in Philadelphia, the Phils lead the woeful Rockies 3-0. Kyle Schwarber with his 4th home run of the season in Baltimore. There have been a lot of home runs today. Tristan Casas hitting his first, Alex Bregman his first as a Red Sox, and Christian Campbell, the newly signed second baseman after his rookie debut. And right now the Red Sox lead the Orioles 7-3 in the top of the ninth. I'm Rich Hacker.
You make the call. 855-212-4227. When you want to talk to us, call 855-212-4227.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Well, you know Radio Row can now start. Westwood One's Radio Rows. This portion of the show is sponsored by Hyundai. The Hyundai Getaway Sales event is going on now. Get deals so right, it almost feels wrong. But don't wait. Visit your local Hyundai dealer today because one of the best talkers on the ESPN these days, especially when it's coming to college basketball, is Seth Greenberg, and the former coach, who I have known for now over a decade when I actually beat him in an NCAA tournament bet. And I got some cotton T-shirts from him for Virginia Tech when he was coaching there. Don't worry, I've given them to my father, and I said I will not wear them anymore because that's not where Seth is. And Seth said if you win, like being Seth, that if he won, that I would get him some bagels. I got him the bagels anyway because I was trying to develop a relationship with you. So how you been?
Doing good. Can't complain. Undefeated for 12 years. Life is good.
Undefeated for 12 years. This Final Four, I love it. I hate some of the takes during this tournament after the first round. Oh, worst tournament ever, brutal. The years where we get Cinderellas, people sit here, they bitch and complain that the games aren't that competitive late. In the years that we have 4 number 1 seeds here, people still aren't happy. It's like you can't appease anybody these days.
People are happily miserable. I mean, it's just the way it is. Talk radio, social media, everyone's an expert, especially if they don't have to put a real person next to it. This is an incredible Final Four. You've got the best playing the best. It doesn't always end up this way. These 4 teams, their body of work was far superior to anyone else's body of work during the course of the season. I always wanted good on good. I mean, that's just the way it is. So we've gotten good on good. We've got 2 young coaches, 2 old coaches. We've got 2 coaches whose sons are on their staffs. We got 3 Jewish coaches. We got a little bit of everything in this thing, but we've got the 4 best teams through the course of the season. And to me, these games are going to be incredible. Can you impose your identity on the game? Can you withstand different runs from your opponent? This is going to be a coaching clinic, all 3 of the games that we're going to see this weekend.
I thought for the majority of the season, Duke was, for me, my best team in the country. I loved Auburn. Then going into the NCAA tournament, they lost 3 out of 4, and everyone then jumped to Florida with the great run that they've been on, winning the SEC. Let me start you off with Auburn and Florida. I think Denver Jones and Tahad Pettiford are going to be their 2 biggest players if they're going to win. And, man, what else is there left to say about Walter Clayton Jr.? He's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think this game's going to come down for Auburn. They got to take care of the ball, take good shots. I went back and watched that game that they lost to Florida at home, Auburn. Yeah. Their shot selection was horrific. And your shot selection and your ball security is connected to your defensive transition. And they got scorched. They gave up, I think, 17 points in transition. So they got to take better shots. They got to take care of the basketball. They got to play through Janai Broome, but he's got to play well. He didn't play well in that game last time. They threw it to him, and Congdon's length and quickness bothered him. They sat on his right shoulder. They took it away. They forced him back the other way. That was a problem. He's got to go quicker or inside pivot and face and create a little bit of space. But that's going to be the key. And then defensively, they got to have better discipline. They didn't have great discipline. Their ball screen defense, I got to believe, will change in this game because they were playing a lot of drop coverage and they downed stuff on the side, and that's when kind of Clayton gets a little room and they move you a little bit. So it's going to be really good. In Florida, they've just got to play better than they played in the tournament thus far, more consistent than they've played in the tournament thus far.
It's wild. They should have lost the Elite 8 game. They were able to pull a rabbit out of the hat, down 9 with over 3:15 to go.
They should have lost to UConn.
Yeah. Actually, it's weird because you usually have one moment
you can't all be UConn. You can't all be Villanova. Their third national championship that they won as a program, and they just walk through everybody. There's usually one game that you get scared and you're lucky to advance. They've had 2 of those now.
Yeah, when I was at Virginia, we went to the Final Four in '84. We had 2 of them. We had Rory Grimes, Iona, had a full court lay-in almost to beat us, and then we had a great game against Indiana. But I was at the SEC tournament, and I watched 3 days of a team that had no fear, played with great pace, great confidence, great freedom, great connectivity offensively and defensively, great versatility in terms of their lineups and their bigs. They haven't played that way in the tournament. You got to give the other team credit to some extent, but this Florida team, when they're playing their very best, is a hard out because the force and the pace they play with, and then the number of playmakers and shot makers, because it's not just Clayton. It's Will Richard, it's Elijah Martin, it's Condon creating a matchup, it's Chinyalu getting to the offensive the glass. It's the guys they bringing Aberdeen off the bench, who's a problem. Hand Logden, who gives them 5 more fouls up front. I mean, they have a lot of different ways to beat you, but each of these teams kind of has a lot of different ways to beat you. That's why they're here.
Would you agree with this statement? Cooper Flagg is the best player in the tournament, but the most entertaining is Walter Clayton Jr.?
Well, especially at the end of a shot clock, at the end of a game. I mean, Walter Clayton Jr. has been just absolutely phenomenal.
Stop right in front of the rim and then go take a 3. That's like the ultimate yes moment.
Well, I mean, and get yourself behind the ball, get yourself on balance, and jump up and knock down that shot. It was just incredible. But, Cooper Flagg is the most versatile player in the tournament. Like we say, the best. He hasn't had the best tournament. Actually, Concanipple, for the tournament, might have had a better tournament. I mean, Concanipple, last game, when Cooper Flagg made those 3 turnovers and his mom cursed him out, Concanipple, he was the most consistent player. And then the development of Malawach is, I'm doing a tape for our game day show tomorrow on their defense. And they pick you up, Duke, 1 step over the 3-point line. They can switch 1 through 5. They can switch 1, 2, 3. They can switch 1 through 4. The versatility, but their defense and their length, that they can run you off the 3 and run you to the rim and protect the rim. But they're going to be challenged by Houston. But, I think that the most versatile player in the tournament is obviously Cooper. He's just different in terms of his versatility.
What do you think the NBA draft projection is? Because I saw you at the draft this year. You do a great job breaking everything down, Seth Greenberg, for Walter Clayton Jr. How do you view him as a potential pro?
I think he's going to be a good pro because he's a shot maker and he can play in spacing, he can play in drag, ball screens. He's a willing passer. He's got strength. He's got leadership from that football stuff that he's done, and he shoots it. You got to be able to make shots to be a difference maker in the NBA, and that dude makes shots. I think he's like he's got a little bit of to me like Fred VanVleet.
Okay.
Bigger. A little bigger, but
I said Curry. I know that's going to the extreme.
That's Jay Will. Jay Will likes the Curry comparison. I refuse to agree with Jay Will. It's my guy.
Seth Greenberg here with us. The coaching matchup. So, Bruce Pearl and Kelvin Sampson, what they've done at Auburn and Houston is I was at a game once, Temple Houston, and Temple actually beat Houston. And Kelvin Sampson was going after the officials a little bit, and I may have had a few pops. Right? It was. Did
you say something?
I had a few drinks.
You are the all-time Temple homer. We understand.
I'm not a homer. The program needs to be a lot better. We need some NIL funding. If the company that I work for, when I had a few zeros in my paychecks, I could start donating more to my alma mater.
Man's negotiating a new contract. Anything I can do to help your show.
I'll give you 5%. But anyway. I saw Kelvin Sampson there, and he was taking off his tie. He was collapsing. He was going nuts, and I'm heckling him. And I'm like, put your tie back on. Stop screaming. Sit down. Be nice to the officials. I looked at the record the other day. Since that video that I took, he's 234 at Houston. What he's doing at Houston, what Bruce Pearl is doing at Auburn, I'm running out of things to say when I praise them.
Yeah, no, first of all, unrelenting is the word I use for Coach Sampson. I've known Coach for forever. And Kelvin is. There's only way. You go to that practice is almost right is wrong. There's only one way to do things. It's the right way. Full blast with incredible force and toughness and physicality. He puts that rebound bubble on top of that basket, and guys go at it. They go at it. And then when he teaches, he's a terrific teacher. And what they do, they don't do a ton, but what they do really, really well. And that's a great lesson for young coaches. You don't have to trick them. Figure out what you're going to do well and then impose it on your opponent. And that's exactly going to be the challenge for Duke and the challenge for Houston. I mean, I say the first 4 minutes of the game, I think Houston turns Duke over 3 times. Because you can talk about their rebounding, and you can talk about the blitzes of the ball screens, and you can talk about the post doubles, and you can talk about all those things. Until you see a game speed, you can show it on film, but until you've got to be bloodied a little bit. And then you got to respond. But
can
Kelvin's
Houston,
terrific.
though, can they knock out Duke early like they did to Tennessee, in your opinion?
No, too many weapons. Look, Tennessee was Tennessee all season long. They had games, unfortunately for Rick, like they had the other day. What Houston did was they took away what Tennessee does well. Tennessee did that better against Kentucky. Like I was worried about Tennessee-Kentucky because, Kentucky has those 2 guards, Owe and Butler, that kind of take away Lanier and Zakai. But Houston just took, Zakai and Lanier out of the game. And then up front, the ball went up on the glass, and you had a bunch of guys in Tennessee fouling the fly to the ball, and those guys at Houston were just flying around. That's not going to happen. And then, you got to decide, do you watch the Purdue game if you're Duke? I watched the Purdue game, and I see how they rescreen and all those high ball screens. So, they're going to try to trap your ball screen. So if you come off the first time, you stretch that big out that you're trapping you, then you flip it right back and you rescreen it. Can that guy get back and play? Well, if he can't get back and play, then those 3 guys behind are starting to rotate, and that's how you get pretty good shots. So I'm sure that John will look at some of those things and say, all right, how can we exploit that? Where just like Kelvin's going to look at things and say, well, Duke's going to switch 1 through 4. Can we create a switch where we get a big on a small, pull a big away from the basket, and that big on a small is going to get us an offensive rebound and we don't make it? So those are the games inside the games that I'm excited about watching.
When you get to John Shire at Duke, right, a few years now since we last saw Coach K coach on the sideline, so that's a task that's so tough. I know you're at Duke, but, hey, we've seen other legendary coaches get replaced and it hasn't worked out as nicely as this one has. When you look at him as a coach, a lot of people just be like, it's Duke. You can put anyone at Duke and they could win. What stands out to you with what John Shire has done?
He's not Coach K. Everything he's doing is in his own personality. Coach K is the matriarch, but this is John Shire's program and no one else's program. And Coach K obviously is a resource, but John Shire's coached this team and built this roster with his own design. And, he's fiercely competitive. If you coached against him as a player, you knew that, but he does it in a different way. There's different ways to demand of your team. There's different ways of setting a standard. There's different ways of holding people accountable. And I think John's just done an incredible job. And I remember I was driving to New York to see my mom, and after they had some of those guys leave, and I gave him a call, and I said, how you doing? He said, I'm doing great, Coach. I said, do you have a plan? He said, yep, I have a plan. I'm going to build this team around Cooper. I'm going to make sure that we have enough experience. We're going to retain the right guys. We're going to get the right pieces. We love our freshman class. We got to get just the right pieces around those guys. And that's exactly what he did. And what he did was then, he didn't realize that Con Knipple was that good, but it was his responsibility to the program to tell Mason Gillis, you're going to have to come off the bench. And he sold it for him. Malik Brown, through the injuries, they've played through that. Having to tell Caleb Foster that Sion James beat him out after a guy that had been there for 2 years, not an easy thing to do, but as a head coach, you got to make tough decisions. And he wasn't afraid to make the tough decisions. He didn't want to appease people. He wanted to make decisions that was the best interest of his program. And that's what he did.
Seth Greenberg, how far are you willing to go in terms of Cooper Flagg at the next level?
I think he'll be an all-star eventually. I don't think he's going to be an all-star. Look, he's 18 years old. He's 18 years old. I mean, he's going to get stronger. He's going to get a little more explosive. He's going to be up to – he doesn't hit a spot and elevate. In those back downs, is he going to be able to play off those back downs in the NBA next year? No, probably not. But the open floor, he's going to be really good. Defensive rebound with space and the spacing that you play in the NBA, really good. Defensive range, really good. So, I think he, depending on the team he goes to, a starter and a guy that impacts winning. But he's, I would say, 22. Let's put it this way. My man at Detroit,
Kate
Cunningham. Right, he didn't really impact winning his first few years, and then all of a sudden, the light bulb goes on, and you see what he did. So, I think Cooper's going to have a similar kind of journey, Look, great teammate, loves to be coached, been at many of their practices, competitive in practice, listens, hears, has a little edge to him. I think Knippel's going to be a good pro. I tell you, the more I watched film on Duke, really locking in on them to prepare for our game day show, Knippel can really guard the ball. Like, he's a physical on-ball defender. He can put the ball handler on his chest and just guard the ball. I mean, like, and that's the thing about this Duke team. Like, we talk about the great defense of Houston. Duke's defense is ridiculous.
Oh, what they did to Alabama was insane.
Wow,
I thought that was going to be the game of the tournament, and it was over early.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
You go Duke or the field to win it all?
Oh, I don't know. I'll tell you on game day. My
pick.
pick.
Come on, you can give us a little appetizer.
I'll give you an appetizer.
Give me a little pig in the blanket here.
So
Come on.
I'll give you this right here.
We're two Jewish guys talking. You can give me a pig in a blanket.
I'll give you. Before this past weekend, I had 99.9% of the bracket correct.
You did?
Yeah. And then
the actual bracket, or you filled them in after the results?
No. I'm talking about the bracket we fill out in 2 minutes on our bracketology show. Having said that, my heart got pulled with Barnesy and Izzo. You know, two really, really good long-term friends. We grew up in the business together. So I went with those two guys and obviously dropped a little bit. My picks going into the tournament was Duke and Florida, with Florida winning. Florida's got to play better to win. How's that one for you?
That's fine. And I look at Auburn. It feels like Auburn's getting a little disrespected going into this game.
No, I think they are. It's
for
really
a traditional number one overall seed.
This is real simple. There's a line. Chad Baker, Mazzara, you're behind the line, no good to us. You cross the line, you're getting tossed out. You straddle the line, and everyone else on your team has a different personality. And I think he's going to be really, really important. But ball security and shot selection, they can't go through these periods where they ignore Janai Broom. They take bad shots, and people get out in transition. And look, we were at the Alabama game at Alabama. Defense was terrific, and their shot selection was good. And when they're at their very best, they can beat anyone.
He's Seth Greenberg, ESPN, longtime coach. Now, how many years have you been doing the analyst stuff for?
12 years.
It's been 12 years?
And a friend of the program.
Obviously. Well, you got to at least be on 3 times to be a friend of the program. That's my algorithm, and you've been on more than 3 times.
I was on 3 times when you were on Temple Radio.
Actually, I think in high school in my parents' basement. You know, they're reward tiers. We'll send you a gift bag or something.
I appreciate
like
that. Bagels.
Yeah, we'll get you more bagels.
Not great bagels in Avon, Connecticut.
You make enough money now at ESPN. I think you made enough money when you were coaching. I may be hitting you up for things. Anyway, great to see you.
Great seeing you, buddy.
Thanks so much. Zach
Gelb
Show, Infinity Sports Network here, Westwood One, coming on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, welcome back in hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. Let me tell you that Werner is the official ladder of the NCAA March Madness and the official ladder of construction professionals everywhere. Conquer new heights with Werner, available nationally at Lowe's. And now joining us on set, nice to see Shaka Smart, the head coach of the Marquette Golden Eagles. We talked to him right before the NCAA tournament did pick on up, and now we're here at the Final Four. Coach, always great to see you. How you been?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Zach.
So let me start you off, because with your career, everyone's going to remember the great run at VCU. Since then, you've had Texas, and now you've been at Marquette for more than a few years. How do you think you've grown as a coach through multiple stops, and how do you want people to kind of think about Shaka Smart as a coach? Because still so many times people go back to what that magical run was at VCU.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I can't really control how anyone else thinks, but in terms of how I've grown, I think a better understanding of, what our players are going through during these interesting times of college sports. And just trying to relate to them and make it more about them than maybe I understood when I was in my early 30s.
So now, what does that look like? Coming off this season, you guys made the tourney. Unfortunately, you go out in the first round up against a really good New Mexico squad.
You lost to St. John's in the Big East tournament, but when you look back at where this is all going and the NIL and the transfer portal and have evolved, what is that going into the season?
Well, actually for us at Marquette, it's really about doubling down on what we value. We value relationships with each other. We value the connection to Marquette, the institution, the people, our fans, the education. We value growth. I mean, it's a very special 4 years that guys get in college to go from being a boy to being a man, and that's not something we take for granted. And then lastly, we value victory and learning to do all the things that go into winning, and not just winning any one particular game, but winning all the facets of life that's going to help you be successful over the course of a long life as a father, as a husband, as an athlete, as a student, as a fill in the blank. So that's what we value. We're just doubling down on those things as things continue to change in our sport. And, we're fortunate to have a group of guys that care about that.
Can relationships still be paramount in college basketball, in your opinion?
They are at Marquette. I can't really answer anywhere else. But, we have a group of guys that they love each other, and it's a lot of fun to be with each other. Listen, I was raised by a single mom, didn't have a dad that really supported me in sports or anything else. So my coaches filled that void. And that's a big part of why I got into coaching. So that's never going to change on my side of things. Obviously, our sport, continues to evolve. But I do think, when you have a group of guys that care about one another and are out there playing for each other, that's still the most powerful force.
Great answer. Shaka Smart here with us on obviously the head coach at Marquette. I love the Big East tournament. I grew up as a kid on Long Island. I would always beg my mom to skip school during March, and she would always let me go to the Big East tournament with her or my dad. The tournament's still great. It's still awesome. I was there. I saw you guys play up against St. John's. But you get into this changing landscape of college athletics, and people are like, oh, should the Big East and the ACC merge? When you hear things like that, what are your opinions on that?
Well, I got a ton of respect for the ACC. I used to be an assistant at Clemson. And, at one time the ACC was the toughest conference in all of college sports, college basketball. I don't know. I mean, I think you'd have to ask the administrators about that. I think the Big East is terrific because you have a bunch of like-minded schools that put basketball first and foremost. Obviously, there's a lot of schools in the ACC that feel the same way, but they do have big-time football, and, that's a little bit of a conflict. So whatever the administrators work out, we'll be there. If it ever is an alliance between the two or one conference between the two, I'd love to be part of it.
Let me use your basketball mind for the games this upcoming weekend. When you take a look at Florida and Auburn, SEC showdown, and then you get Duke and Houston, just what are the things that stand out to you?
Well, I think they've been the best teams all year. This is, one of the unique tournaments where there's not been a lot of upsets, and you have the best teams have advanced to San Antonio. Normally there's, at least one or two number one seeds that gets knocked off. It's fun to watch from a fan perspective. I think that particularly the Duke-Houston game is just going to be incredibly compelling because you have so many strengths against strength matchups. And then when you have Auburn and Florida obviously coming out of the same league and being the class of that league, Florida is playing so incredibly well. But Auburn, the depth of what they've done this season is going to be fascinating. So, you learn in coaching that at this time of year, it's really whoever's playing their best at that particular time, and that's certainly going to apply in a couple of days.
What did you make of Sean Miller become the next head coach at Texas?
It's a great hire, and Sean's a terrific coach. Got a chance to compete against him the last few years in the Big East. Did a great job at Xavier, great job at Arizona before that. He's obviously, used to coaching big-time talent and coaching at a blue blood type program at Arizona. So I think he'll do an awesome job.
Talking to Shaka Smart right now, a few more minutes on Westwood One's Radio Road. Is a Zach Gelb show live in San Antonio. When we get to Bruce Pearl and Kelvin Sampson, don't get me wrong. If Todd Golden wins, I'll be happy. If John Shire wins, I'll be happy. I don't really care who wins. But those guys now getting up there in years, how long they've been around, these rejuvenation projects that they've had at Auburn and Houston, it would be pretty neat to see one of them finally punch through and be able to hoist a national championship trophy.
Yeah, and even if you look at what those guys have gone through in their careers, they've gone through different twists and turns, and even for both of them being out of college coaching for a time. And I don't know Coach Pearl as well. I actually went and watched Houston practice earlier this year in October at the beginning of the season. And Coach Sampson is somebody that I call often to pick his brain about different elements of coaching. Personally, I would love to see him cut down the nets on Monday night. He's done it the old-fashioned way. And his program is a little bit different than the other three in that it's mostly homegrown. They've obviously have some transfer sprinkled in, but he's developed these guys. And they're not littered with all these guys that were destined to be NBA players from the beginning. They've gotten better and better. Their system's phenomenal. I think if they can play the type of defense that they played the other day against Tennessee, they're going to be hard to beat against anyone, but they're certainly going to get put to the test against Cooper Flagg and a guy we know really well, Con Knipple.
Last thing I'll ask you, just looking back at this season, you walk away looking back and remembering this season as Marquette as what?
Well, every spring you always try to evaluate the season and learn from the twists and turns. For me, I've never coached a season where I didn't look back and say, we need to be better at this or we need to be better at that. I think that's just part of being a coach. So what we do at Marquette is we take, the spring as a program. And we're lucky. Most years we have a good amount of guys back. And we sit down and we look at, okay, how could we have been better? Culturally, defensively, and offensively. And there's a lot of areas that we will look at, continue to evolve. And that's one of the fun things. This was my 16th year as a head coach. It's one of the fun things about coaching is you get a chance to continue to evolve and learn and try to be better with the next group.
Well, Coach, we appreciate it. Thanks so much for stopping by today.
You got it. Thank you, Zach.
There you go. Shaka Smart joining us on the show. Zach Gelb here with you on the Infinity Sports Network. Let me also tell you that we are sponsored today by Ego, tools that deliver or exceed the power and performance of gas without the noise, fuss, and fumes. For any outdoor challenge, count on Ego tool to deliver the power, performance, and innovation you need. Ego, power beyond belief. We are here in San Antonio. Let's do this right now. We will take a break. Dennis Gates is going to join us in about a half hour from now, the head men's basketball coach at Missouri. When we return, though, we're going to update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We will do a news brief, a whole lot more to do, live in San Antonio, back after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, welcome back inside Westwood One's Radio Row. Zach Gelb here with you in San Antonio, getting set for the Final Four. Once again today, we are brought to you on behalf of Werner, the official ladder of NCAA March Madness and the official ladder of construction professionals everywhere. Conquer new heights with Werner, available nationally at the Home Depot. Fun show right out of the gate so far, talking to Greg Gard, the men's head basketball coach at Wisconsin. Then we saw our pal Seth Greenberg, longtime friend of the show. Dennis Gates from Missouri is going to join us coming up at 3:40 p.m. Eastern time today. And just a few moments ago, we were joined by the head men's basketball coach at Marquette with the Golden Eagles. That, of course, Shaka Smart. Porter Moser going to join us coming up an hour from now as we continue to get you set for the Final Four that rolls on Saturday, as you will see Auburn and Florida go up against Duke and Houston, and we'll see then who's playing on Monday. You know, I'm looking at the four teams that are remaining, and I think the fair question to ask, because we had John Fanta on the other day, and I said to John, you know, the four teams remaining in the NCAA tournament, in terms of them winning it all, how do you rank them? You know, best chances to win it all. And Duke was sitting there. He put them as 1. Then he put Auburn in at 2. Then he had Florida at 3, and then he put Houston as 4. And a big reason why he put Houston as 4 is he just said Auburn and Florida feels like a toss-up. I know right now that the Gators are a 2.5-point favorite, even though Auburn is the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. but he just really doesn't see a great chance of Houston beating Duke. So I'll take it a step further. Is it Duke or is it the field to win it all? And John Shire, I don't think, has got enough credit. Cooper Flagg, I think, as I've been saying all week and even going back to last week, he's the best player in this tournament, pound for pound, but the most entertaining is Walter Clayton Jr. I think this is a big moment for Janai Broome at Auburn to kind of step on the court, even dealing with some injuries. You know, Bruce Pearl was on with us earlier in the week, and he was saying he should be the National Player of the Year, even though that award is not won this weekend, and it's already decided upon in terms of what happened during the regular season and all that jazz. This is a big national moment for Janai Broome, who it wasn't that long ago, 3-4 years ago, he's at Morehead State, and now the last 3 seasons he's been at Auburn, and he's been dominating. But I look at this, and when I ask the question, Duke or the field, my brain just keeps on saying Duke. And, hey, I love Bruce Pearl. I think the job that Kelvin Sampson has done at Houston year in and year out with that consistency is remarkable. And Todd Golden is a young coach that is going to be good for a long time. And they have a player that has an ability to just take over. And it doesn't matter. We've seen it. Down 9 with 3:15 to go up against Texas Tech. Down with a similar situation to UConn with about 3-4 minutes to go. And boom, they pop off and they prevail and they snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat. But I've said this going into the tournament, and it's not me sitting here saying, "Oh, I told you so," and all this stuff. Oh, give me credit for this obvious take. But I thought entering the tournament, Florida was playing the best in the country, but the best team in the country was Duke. And the only reason why people questioned Duke was because in the ACC tournament, Cooper Flagg went down with that ankle injury. Well, within 45 seconds, 2-3 minutes max of Cooper Flagg getting on the court in that first round game up against a 16 seed, dunking the basketball, sticking out his tongue, in celebration, did anyone think that Cooper Flagg wasn't 100%? Did anyone think that his lack of health was going to prevent them from winning the NCAA tournament? So Duke, I think, has the most on the line this weekend. Duke is expected to be in the championship game on Monday night. Duke is expected to cut down the nets. And I look at Duke and Houston, and we talked about it a little bit with Seth. It's that Duke, their offense is incredible. We all acknowledge that. Their defense, though, and what they did in the way that they ran and just out-physicaled Alabama off the basketball court and made their guards look as frustrated as I've ever seen, that's what stands out to me. It's the defense of Duke. I think the two underappreciated parts about Duke is the defense and then also the coach in John Shire. And I do believe that in these next 2 games, even if it may be closer than what people think, I am taking Duke to beat Houston, and then Auburn and Florida. Oh, my goodness gracious. Florida being a 2.5-point favorite, it does scare me. Because that's a spread that's screaming to Zach Gelb to plus the points with Auburn, right? And my guy Bruce Pearl, right? Plus the points for Coach Pearl. As I sit here on Thursday, and a lot could change in the next 24 hours, and I do believe that Tahad Pettiford and Denver Jones are the 2 biggest players for Auburn, even though we just talked about how Janai Broome is obviously one of the better players in the country. But Denver Jones' defense up against Walter Clayton Jr. is going to be enormous. And then Pettiford, as a freshman, his confidence, as MJ used to say, right, the roof is the ceiling. Well, it's through the roof and through the ceiling as well for Tahad Pettiford. If he could break 20 points, if he could get 22 in that realm, then Auburn is easily going to be alive to win the game. But with the way that Florida was playing going into the tournament, and I'm not usually one of these believers in terms of, there's a team of destiny. I think whenever you hear people say before they win it all, they're a team of destiny, those teams usually lose. But to see how they pulled a rabbit out of the hat up against Texas Tech, and then also earlier in the round of 32 up against UConn, it just makes me think that the tournament is going to conclude with Duke and Florida as we sit here on Monday night in San Antonio. And the NCAA tournament's going to start way too late locally when we're back on the East Coast. It's just ridiculous how late they start that. But that's what I'm feeling like today, and that's the way that I picked it going into this tournament. I had the Final Four right besides Michigan State, and before Auburn-Michigan State, I said, I'm betting Auburn, and I just survived with them. I think they won by 6, and they were a 5.5-point favorite. But those, to me, Auburn and Duke going into this tournament were the two best teams in the country, and that's what I think we're going to see on Monday night, but still I'm not picking against Duke. Can Florida with Walter Clayton Jr. and Hall, can they find a way to pop off and beat Duke? Sure. But you say, Zach, Duke or the other three teams? I'm going with Duke. All righty, let's update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We will get to a news brief right now.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, let's start things off with Matt Miller, NFL draft analyst. He was on with Kay Adams, Up and Adams, and he was talking about Jackson Dart, which, by the way, if Jackson Dart goes in the first 10 picks of the draft, I think my head will literally explode on draft night. I'm wearing a cowboy hat right now, not the Dallas Cowboys, like an actual cowboy hat trying to fit into San Antonio, which I'm like a fat, sore thumb right now, and I'm just sticking out when I'm wearing this cowboy hat. Because I'm not wearing like a flannel shirt or cowboy boots. I'm wearing Nikes and jeans and a collared T-shirt. But I think my head would literally go through this cowboy hat if Jackson Dart somehow, some way finds a way into the top 10 on April 24th. But let's hear what Matt Miller had to say about that.
I think Jackson Dart going in the top 10 is the hot one. And you're right. It's been quiet. As someone who loves draft rumors, it's been quiet. I think it's because we don't have the big quarterbacks this year. But Jackson Dart going in the top 10, and that might be the Saints at 9. It might be a team trading up. That's the one that I'm trying to get the most intel on right now because the buzz on him has just been building. And I will be the first to admit there have been buzz on players in the past that fizzled out by the time we got to draft weekend. Mac Jones going number 3 was the big buzz not that long ago, and he didn't go until 15. So with Jackson Dart, we'll see, but it's definitely trending in the direction that he's going to go much earlier than we all thought when the season ended.
So last year, I wouldn't have thought this time that Michael Penix Jr. would have been the 8th pick. I also wouldn't have thought this time last year that Bo Nix would have been 12th. But at least Michael Penix Jr. had great film the last 2 years at Washington. At least Bo Nix, right, turned his career around from a bust at Auburn to then the last 2 years at Oregon. He changed the narrative around. Jackson Dart, he puts up good stats. He's a system quarterback to me. I saw him up against Kentucky. Did not play good enough. I saw him at the end of the season when they still had a chance to go to the college football playoff, and they're in Florida, and they had multiple chances to go win the game, and he couldn't find a way to get the job done with some hellacious throws. Not just bad. Some brutal, some putrid throws. I'm looking at the draft. He ain't going 2 to Cleveland. We know he's not going 1 to Tennessee. I'm not even going to insult you and waste your time. He's not going 3 to the Giants. Stu, imagine if the Raiders take him at 6. There's no way. No way that, Stu, that the Raiders could take Jackson Dart with the 6th overall pick in the draft.
No, they've had a lot of really bad picks. That one might be the ultimate one that just puts me over the edge. I don't know if I can handle Jackson Dart at 6.
You would enter football fandom therapy. You would enter the transfer portal.
Yeah, I might have to at that point. I mean, that would be too far.
The worst Raiders draft pick, 2 that come to mind.
Yeah, I have 2 as well.
Well, actually 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 come to mind.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Jamarcus Russell.
Yes.
It was the right pick at the time, but it was a bust.
Yes.
Darius Hayward-Bay.
Yes.
And then Cleveland Farrell, 4th
overall when he's probably like a 30th overall prospect. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
You know what? There's a lot of choices, but they're all bad choices. It's kind of the antithesis of where we were at last night when we walked into Max and Louie's and they had all these great choices on the menu, and then afterwards we go for dessert to their ice cream store, Melvin's, and we're looking around and there's all these great choices. The Raiders need to start being like Max and Louie's.
Yep.
The Raiders need to start being like Melvin's, where they actually have a lot of choices and a lot of good options. I go Raiders former draft picks. It's bad option, bad situation, absolutely brutal. You may need to call up Mark Davis, who I guess said that maybe they could win the Super Bowl today. I saw it somewhere.
Great, yeah, sure.
And maybe you should say, go to San Antonio, go meet the owner, Andrew Glick, and his wife, Wendy, and they'll teach you how to give people good options that are delicious. Because the Raiders right now, they have a lot of bad options that aren't delicious.
Yep.
You good with that?
Yes, absolutely.
So anyway, Jackson Dart, he's not going to the Saints at 9. If he goes to Saints at 9, well, what's that franchise doing? And you continue to go down. The Seahawks at 18, and they just got Sam Darnold. You go and you continue through this. The only team I could circle is maybe the Steelers at 21. That's the only place that I feel I would be comfortable if the Steelers take Jackson Dart at 21. Let me be abundantly clear. I do not think he should be a first-round pick. But if he is going to go to the first round, the Steelers are the first team that I look at and go, okay, they need a quarterback, and okay, I could be content with that. But isn't that just basically Kenny Pickett all over again? Where you take a quarterback in the 2021s, not because you think he's going to be great, but just because he kind of fell to you. Let's go to Trey Hendrickson. He wants a new contract. He was on the Pat McAfee show, and he opened up on his negotiations with the Cincinnati Bengals.
I've been open and transparent about however it looks for me in Cincinnati or not. I want the Bengals to benefit from that. And through this process, communication, when I say it's been poor, it's been like here and there, and respect to Jamar and T. I don't want to take anything away from all the great things they've accomplished in their careers. They deserve everything that they've gotten. But when it comes to my situation, it would have been nice to know, in some ways, like, hey, we're going to put you in the queue, no problem with me. My wife and I try to be as humble as possible. So we don't have any desires of being highest paid or, first in line. We try to be as patient as possible. But when you have things like OTAs coming, those are the things that matter when you're talking about a Super Bowl. It's in the little things and the little details.
Stu, I'll use an analogy. And you've been in a relationship for how many years? Have you been dating Angie?
3 years now.
3 years.
Yeah.
So you may not appreciate this analogy.
Okay.
But Angie probably has a lot of friends, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do a lot of them have boyfriends?
I'd say like half of them, yeah.
Have any of them popped the question yet?
Not yet,
okay.
No.
So here's what's going to happen.
Uh-huh.
One by one, they're going to start popping the question. Jamar Chase, you want a new contract? Yep, we're good. T. Higgins, you want a new contract? Yep, we're good. Oh, Joe Burrow, I forgot about the bell of the ball. You got a new contract, you're good. 3 friends just got engaged. And then there's the 4th one. And Trey Hendrickson's like, when is someone asking me? When is someone giving me all this money? When is someone trying to, I'm not even asking for a big rock on my finger. I just want the person to get down on one knee and say, will you marry me? And I'll say yes. That is what Trey Hendrickson is basically asking right now. And the Cincinnati Bengals are sitting there, and you're going to all the family functions, and everyone's teasing you, and everyone's making the jokes and all that stuff. And the Bengals are just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting on Trey Hendrickson. And Trey Hendrickson's even tried to get out of this relationship, but he's still open to finding a resolution to the problem, and there hasn't been much movement on the Cincinnati Bengals front. Let's go to Howie Roseman. He was on the McShay show, and he made it clear that any player that has a prior domestic violence incident will not be wanted on the Philadelphia Eagles through the draft process or any process at all.
For us, we have some objective things that I can't even overrule, and they're ours, but, for one, like, violence against women. Like, it's just not for us, right. That doesn't mean, so it's like, I won't even watch them. I don't even want to talk about it. It just is deal breakers for us. So I can't go, but he's really good and he did it 10 years ago and he learned from it. It just doesn't work for us.
I respect that. Now, I don't know how true that is. Is there a player that maybe they would tend to look the other way to bring them in? I'm not going to say that's never the case, but when you say something like that, that's a clip that's going to be out there. And if you do bring in a player that has domestic violence issues, whether it was a year ago, 10 years ago, or whatever, people are going to look there and say, well, Howie, what changed from that clip that you just issued to the McShay show? So that was interesting. Usually don't hear a GM just basically come on out, even though it's the right thing to say. And I respect him for doing so, and I commend him to just say we will never bring in someone that has any past when it comes to domestic violence. Let's go to Raiders GM John Spytek. He was on SiriusXM NFL Radio, and he made it clear that his 10-year-old son really, really, really wants Ashton Jeanty. And to be clear, I am not the 10-year-old son of John Spytek.
My oldest son has made it no secret that if we don't pick Ashton Jeanty at 6, that he's walking out of the family and he's going to find somebody else, probably whoever takes Ashton. I think he's motivated.
He's a free agent for fandom right now.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, Jack is motivated by fantasy football and touchdowns in fantasy football, not necessarily all of team building. But I love that my son loves the draft process at 10 years old, and maybe he's starting to fall in love with the scouting process. I hate it a little bit too because I know the life that he's signing up for, but the passion that he has. And he walked right into our building and basically told Mark Davis, like, if my dad doesn't take Ashton Genty, he's doing a bad job.
That's crazy. Now, I wonder how true that story is, but it's a fun story. It's almost like Joe Shane last year. His kid's like, Dad, you get one chance to do this. Go get Jaden Daniels. You need a quarterback. And the kid ended up looking like a genius. Now, we'll see what happens with Ashton Genty. But if the Raiders don't get Shedeur Sanders, and if he's available there, I think they should take him. Let me be abundantly clear on that. But let's say if Shedeur goes to the Browns or the Giants, I'm more than fine with the Raiders taking a running back at 6. At first, I thought it was a little bit too early. But with Geno Smith being your quarterback, I don't think he should be the identity of your offense. And then I would make Ashton Genty the identity of the offense. And we've seen before Pete Carroll win with a big, aggressive, just bulldozing running back. And I'll never forget when we had Ashton Genty on the show, I said to him, who are the 3 running backs that you model your game after? And 2 of the 3 that he mentioned were Alvin Kamara and then also Marshawn Lynch. So that could fit into the Pete Carroll system. Let's go to Kevin Willard, the new Villanova coach, on his comments during the NCAA tournament when he was still at Maryland.
Obviously, I think some of my comments during the NCAA tournament probably could have been a little bit less abrasive, but unfortunately, sometimes when my passion for my program and my passion for my players come out, I get a little excited. The only thing I'm going to say is normal fans just don't understand what went on. The timeline, no one knows it, no one understands it. I can't change that, and I'm not worried about that. All I'm going to say is that, Maryland just got a great coach and buzz, and I'm really happy for them, and I'm super excited to be at a great basketball conference here, and I just think it's time that everyone move on.
Well, we could all understand it. You were annoyed with the Maryland situation. You thought that you deserved better, and you knew what was going on with Villanova. You just weren't as truthful as Will Wade was. I'm not crushing Kevin Willard. I haven't been slamming Kevin Willard, but this idea that we can't understand what happened, it's pretty obvious what did transpire. Let's go to Rick Pitino on Vice Sports. Does he regret benching R.J. Lewis in the second round of the NCAA tournament, as you did see his St. John's squad fall to John Calipari and a little pig suey with Arkansas?
Looking back on my career, I've made some good timeouts, some good moves, and not putting a guy on the ball against Christian Laettner. In hindsight, seeing what happened, I would have put a guy on the ball. 100% the right decision not playing R.J. Lewis in that game. 100%.
Yeah, I can't agree with that one. I can't agree with that one whatsoever. And I think there was something more there, as John Fanta kind of explained with us earlier in the week. Finally, let's hear Alexander Ovechkin. This is John Walton on the Capitals Radio Network. This was Ovi getting goal 892. He is 2 away from tying Wayne Gretzky and 3 away from having the most goals in the history of the NHL.
Ovechkin to the high slot. As Chikrin feeds it to him, he scores! Alex Ovechkin gets goal 892! It's on the power play! Top right corner against Frederick Anderson! Ladies and gentlemen, he is 3 goals away from the record! He has scored here in Carolina!
So there you go, Alexander Ovechkin, 2 goals away from tying the record, 3 away from breaking it. We'll take a break. That's a News Brief Zach Gelb Show here with you live inside the Convention Center in San Antonio for Westwood One's Radio Row. Dennis Gates going to join us on the other side, the head basketball coach at Missouri. But first up with the latest sports flash, here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Geno Smith had his best years in Seattle under Pete Carroll, and the Raiders are banking on that happening again, signing their recently acquired quarterback to a 2-year extension worth over $66 million in guaranteed money. It could reach as much as a total of $85 million. The Cowboys have found a replacement for Cooper Rush, acquiring Joe Milton from the Patriots, along with a 7th-round pick. New England gets a 5th-rounder from Dallas for the backup quarterback. The NBA season is winding down. There's quite a battle going on in the West for playoff positions. The Lakers host the Warriors, and LA tied with Denver, which is idle for the 3rd spot in the West. Golden State is 5th, 2 games back. Just a half game in front of the Wolves, Clippers, and Grizzlies. Head coach Steve Kerr said his team has to remain focused on themselves.
We're obviously, fighting it out with Minnesota, with the Clippers, and you never know what happens with anybody. So you got to handle your own business.
The Wolves face the Nets. The sliding Grizzlies will take on the Heat tonight in Memphis. Baseball right now, top of the second. Twins lead the Astros 2-1. Earlier, it was the Red Sox knocking off the Orioles 8-4. Alex Bregman homered in his first game, or for the first time as a Red Sox, and the Phils down the Rockies 3-1. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Watch the breakdown.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, welcome back inside the Convention Center in San Antonio. It is the Zach Gelb Show on Westwood One's Radio Row. This portion of the show is brought to you by Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage, no medical exam, just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com. Not available in all states. And also, let me tell you, stop struggling to get your job post on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs featured helps you stand this out and hire fast. Start at Indeed.com/credit. And now let's welcome in the men's head basketball coach at Missouri, and he's now going into his 4th season, right? I guess that the 3rd season's already done and over within the books, and that, of course, is Dennis Gates. Coach, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
So how do you look back at this past season? I know it didn't go the way that you wanted it to in the tournament, but for most of the year, your basketball program received a lot of praise.
Well, I'm proud of our guys. I'm proud of our program. I'm proud of all hands that were on deck to make the season as successful as it was. Only one team get to have the season that they really want. Everyone else will fall a little bit short. I do think our guys fought hard, and collectively we did a good job.
I think I heard Bruce Pearl say it with all the coaches that obviously have been talking. It's such a difference when you look back at a season when you get to the second weekend. Clearly that didn't happen for you guys. I know the sport changes so much, right, with the NIL and the transfer portal, and continuity is tough, but when you guys start coaching up for next season, what do you think you could take from this experience?
I think this is priceless, first of all. Being able to have a conference where 14 out of 16 teams goes to the NCAA tournament, 14 out of 16 are nationally ranked in the top 25 at some point in the season. It's a dogfight each and every day. There's nothing you can circle at all to have a day off, a week off, or anything otherwise. And it went from the very beginning to the very end. It's an emotional, mental toll on players. But pretty much I think everyone got better. Coaches got better, referees got better, and players who play the game definitely gotten better.
And it's honestly so tough to evaluate the SEC because you can't do it how you would with other schools and other conferences.
Yeah.
I remember, I know it's only 3 weeks ago, but going into this tournament, people go, Auburn lost 3 out of their last 4. They're not trending in the right direction this time of the year. This conference was just unbelievable this year.
Yeah, Florida was the only team in our conference that didn't lose back-to-back games. That's only team.
Stupid.
Everybody else did. Everybody went on a losing streak at some point. 2 games, 3 games, some 4, and they still made the NCAA tournament. So my hats off to the teams that are here in San Antonio representing the SEC, and what better way to do it than to hopefully cut down some nets.
Was it surprising this year? We knew that going into the year, it was a high level of competition. There was going to be a lot of great teams. But when you hear 14 teams got in, to look back at how it played out, Dennis Gates, is that surprising to you?
Well, you start to think about it as coaches size each other up during the conference meetings in the summer, right? And then once the season starts, you just want to go through preseason without injuries. I think Arkansas had injuries earlier, and they were able to get healthier and healthier. And that's why you saw that team get better and better. From there, you fast forward, you look at every roster, you look at every coach, you look at every situation possible. You just see teams get better, man, and it just happens over time, and obviously it happens organically. So
I know that you guys beat Florida by that 1-point victory. As Dennis Gates is here with us. So how the heck do you beat Florida? Because even teams like Texas Tech and UConn, it looked like they had them, and then in the final 3-4 minutes of the game, they just take over, and boom, they're on to the next round.
Well, they broke a deficit. We had them down 20 at their place, and Todd sent me a text afterwards about how good of a job our guys did, and he went on publicly to say we're a second weekend team in the NCAA tournament, but we fell short. But how do you do it? You do it with players, man. The players did a great job. They executed my game plan, and we went in there in a tough environment, which I had been used to being at Florida State because that's one of our rivals that we've played when I was an assistant with Coach Ham every year. And we've seen that place rocking, and it was just the preparation that went into it.
He's one of my favorite people in this business, Leonard Hamilton.
Yeah, great man.
I know it's such a question that it's like it's not a lame radio question, but you could sit here and you could talk about him for like 45 minutes. But what are the things that he kind of taught you really when you look back at it?
I think we all first have to understand whenever someone retires, they've left their legacy. Coach has left 5 decades of his impact on college basketball. And the more we continue to talk about him, the more respect he'll get being in the Hall of Fame. And I truly believe that's where he deserved. Now, your original question was his impact.
Yeah, for you personally.
Yeah, his impact for me goes from this. At an early age, I told a stranger, hey, I want to be just like you. And it became his dream to see my dream come true. So I didn't miss a radio show, didn't miss a post-game press conference. I saw the emotional intelligence and literacy that he operated with. I saw how he took losses, took wins. I saw how he developed young people. I saw how he partnered with campus stakeholders, meaning administration, ADs, and different people in that community, but also former players and obviously donors. He allowed me a front row seat as an apprentice, and he's somebody that I would always credit for allowing me to use his platform to get better.
Yeah, I like the way that you said the media answer because it's weird. Yes, I am in the media, but I don't look at myself as a traditional journalist.
Yeah,
I show up, I give opinions. I have relationships obviously with coaches and players, but I just try to do an entertaining show. But there could be. Like I said, a lot of good relationships with players and coaches, but it feels like there is more of a hostile relationship now with players and the media and coaches in the media. You do?
I disagree. Okay. Let me break this down to you. Mm-hmm. Game day wouldn't be the same without the band, cheerleaders. Yeah, you got fans.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be the same without the bands and cheerleaders. The media is responsible for narrating a story.
Yeah.
Narrate a story to those that can't see it but can hear it. Narrate a story to those that can hear it but not see it and not hear it, right? Vice versa. But also putting it all together, building the violins and the trumpets. You guys do a great job of storytelling and meeting people on their turf, and you guys are responsible for filling the seats of those people and getting them where they can sit on their couch.
Yeah.
To get in the car, change their schedule by week to get to a game that you guys are talking about because of the media presence, because of the personality presence, that you humanize those players. You humanize us as coaches. So I disagree. You're part of the ecosystem.
I like it.
And the ecosystem can't disagree.
I really like that answer. Dennis Gates here with us, the coach at Missouri. And also, the way I view it, and so many different platforms now, so many people have access. You never know the information and all that stuff. But the way I look at it is I'm a voice for the fan.
You're a voice.
So I try to ask things that I think my fans want to hear.
But let me finish that sentence. You're a voice for the fans of the people who coach and play.
What do you mean by that?
You connected.
Yeah.
You guys connected.
Oh, sure.
You connected.
Yeah.
And it was just an incomplete sentence that you got to add that piece to it.
Oh, well, yeah.
You have to add that piece to it because some people take it for granted.
Sure.
Some people take you guys for granted, man. And there is a relationship that I think everybody wants to see us disagree as coaches.
Oh, yeah.
Your job is to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you often tell the truth, I've had it where coaches have called me, I don't really like what you said, and I go, well, did you listen to it?
Was it the truth?
Was it the truth?
Absolutely.
And I've gotten into it with plenty of coaches
part.
and players, and I'm still friends with many of them still to this day that you disagree with. But it would be boring if we all agreed on everything.
That's what
honestly.
I'm saying. It's part of it, man. It's part of it.
So let me get a few seconds in here on Auburn. I really think, even though Janai Broome is their best player, that if they're going to be able to beat Florida, Denver Jones with his defense is going to have to be unbelievable. He's a tremendous defensive player. But then Todd Pettiford, if he breaks 20-plus points, I think they're going to have a real chance to go win that game.
Florida, Florida is a good team. Todd Golden is a great coach. Very good dynamics, right? Bruce Pearl is seasoned, been in the game for a while, second Final Four. And maybe there's some things off the court that no one will see that he will be preparing for because he's been here just recently and he lost a tough game to Virginia the last time he was at this stage.
Yeah.
So Auburn has played without Janai Broome this season. And they have played on the road. They have played at home. And that team is a good team. So you'll have different pieces step up. And what's going to separate it is probably the width of the eye of a needle. That's probably how separate this game will be.
I'm thinking like 83-82, something like that.
Yeah, it may be. But then again, it can be a old-fashioned SEC blowout. Somebody win by 4 points.
I get, especially this year. It's a good way that you threw that in there. And also, I wonder, and you have so many relationships in the game too. Bruce Pearl, Todd Golden's practically like a son to him. He coached him in the Maccabi games. He was on his first staff, coming over from Columbia to Auburn. Does that give one coach or another an advantage with the familiarity that they have with one another?
Let me say this to you. They still want to kick each other's butt.
Oh, that's for sure.
There's no doubt. But there is a relationship, a mentorship that takes place. There is a sense of pride that Todd has forever, an appreciation for Coach giving him a chance as his director of ops. I just think both guys have sort of like similarities with their rosters too.
Mm-hmm.
They have dynamic playmakers, right? They have dynamic point guards, combo guards. They have dynamic size in the paint, and it's gonna be tough, man. I feel for the referees who are refereeing this game because I think Bruce and Todd is gonna let them know how important that mistake is.
I only got 30 seconds left.
Yes.
Missouri basketball is going where into year 4?
Well, we'll continue to build, but I'm excited about our returners. We look at Mark Mitchell, who could be a preseason first-team all-conference guy, possibly. You look at Ant Robinson. Ant Robinson was one of only 5 players on the all-defensive team. He was the only underclassman, so in my eyes, he's the returning preseason defensive player of the year. And when you have those type of connectors on your roster, we're just portal combat right now to complete our roster, but I'm excited about our talent, our nucleus, our returners, and top to bottom, I'm excited about our staff.
Coach, we appreciate it. Thanks so much for stopping on by.
MIZ.
Yeah, you got it. We'll take a timeout. Zach Gelb here with you from San Antonio, Westwood One's Radio Row.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. We're here live in San Antonio for Westwood One's Radio Row with the Final Four. And we're here today brought to you on behalf of Werner, the official ladder of NCAA March Madness and the official ladder of construction professionals everywhere. Conquer new heights with Werner, available nationally at Lowe's. So I read a story this morning. And I don't want to say I'm skeptical of the story, because if you put a gun to my head and you said, Zach, is this story true? I would say that it's said. But that it was actually said. It was on Larry Brown Sports, which is a reputable website. They better be reputable. They write about us a lot. And here was the quote. First of all, there's no guarantees that Arch Manning is coming out after next year. It sounds like he certainly could be staying beyond next year, Adam Schefter said, as transcribed by Bleacher Report. I'm not a college football insider, but none of the Mannings ever went out early, and I don't know with NIL money being what it is why Arch would do that. So all this conversation about tanking for Arch next year, he could be in the draft in 2027, not even next year. So regardless if this was actually said or not, I do think there's a lot of merit to the conversation. I don't think you could accurately predict in the NFL draft what the Manning family is going to do. And also, I think Arch Manning is going to be really damn good. But we've barely seen him, right? We heard a lot about him in high school. How many of you were actually watching Arch Manning in high school? Right? We don't pretend to be experts. Oh, we saw him do this, we saw him do that. How many of you were actually watching Arch Manning in high school? And then you get to college. Quinn Ewers is not a first-round pick to me. I think Quinn Ewers, and I've said this for a while, is a backup quarterback in the NFL. But Quinn Ewers, for what he's done the last 2 years at Texas, he's got to be one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks that we've seen for what he's accomplished. Not the most, but one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks. Remember how much we used to clown Texas? Sam Ehlinger, we're back, and all that stuff. Texas went into a category with Miami and Texas and other schools that they were resting on what happened 20, 25 years ago. And a little moment would happen, and you would get that social media sarcasm, which would be, Texas is back. They won a game. Oh, they're back. Well, Quinn Ewers at Texas took him to not one but two college football playoff appearances. He won their final year in the Big 12, and then in his first year in the SEC, got him to an SEC championship game, and we saw what Texas was able to do. And quite frankly, I'm still not over. There's some things in sports that you just don't get over, and I know everyone's got to say, oh, you got to move on. You got to turn the page. Steve Sarkisian's play calling up against Ohio State. I'll tell you why it still annoys me. One, it was a stupid play call. Number two, I can't stand Ohio State. I can't stand Ohio State. And Ohio State should have been on the ropes, potentially knocked out in that game. And I think it was 2nd and goal at the 2 or the 3, whatever it was. And you pitched the ball 7 yards behind you. I didn't even need to watch the rest of the game. I remember watching it. I was at a bar in the city watching the game. And the person I was watching with was like, oh, maybe they'll still put the ball. I'm like, nope, not going to happen. And eventually Jack Sawyer, Captain Jack, you'll also have Gus Johnson, Jack Sawyer, like go nuts and scream. Jack Sawyer had the strip sack and then ran the ball back and had the whole touchdown. But the play call by Sarkisian, I won't get over. But still, even with that being said, and that going to a little sports PTSD right there, what Quinn Ewers did the last 2 years at Texas was really special. And it's almost as if we didn't appreciate it as much because we're sitting back and we're saying to ourselves, okay, when are we seeing Arch? Because we have been told, and we have placed Arch on such a pedestal, and we have been told that he's going to be Peyton, right? He's going to be that next line of Manning where I know Eli didn't make the Hall of Fame this year. It's a controversial topic. Eli Manning will definitely be a Hall of Famer one day. So you're setting a bar where you have Peyton and Eli Manning. Peyton, who is a top 5 quarterback of all time. I would say Brady's 1, Montana 2, Mahomes 3, and then I would say Peyton Manning's 4th. I think he's the 4th best quarterback of all time. Where some people could say, maybe he's 3. But he's easily a top 5 quarterback. So Peyton Manning is easily a top 5 quarterback. Then you had Eli Manning, who was never a great regular season quarterback. But when Eli got into the playoffs those 2 years, he went on 2 not just special runs, enormous runs that will go down in the annals of NFL history, where not only did you beat the undefeated Patriots at the time, but then a few years later you played them again and you beat them again, and you put a dent in the greatest NFL dynasty that we've ever seen. So look at the standard and the hype on where we're putting Arch. For a guy where, for being honest, we haven't seen much of him. I know he had the few starts this year when Quinn Ewers got hurt. But we are basing what we think Arch Manning's going to be based off what we've been told. There is such a great desire for me to see what Arch is going to be able to do on the field. But here's the thing. Even though Arch has been there for 2 years, and Arch is not a freshman, this is going to be the first year where it's his team. This is going to be the first year where he's calling the shots, and he's the unquestioned starter. What happens if Arch struggles a little bit? What happens if Arch is just good and not great? Is Arch Manning going to run to the NFL draft? He could be brutal this year. He will still, whenever he declares for the draft, because of his last name and because of what people think he will be a first-round pick. But the trajectory of what we think Arch Manning is going to do is this. Texas, get him to the playoff this year, be a Heisman Trophy finalist, then be a number 1 overall pick of the draft, then go win a Super Bowl, if not multiple Super Bowls in the NFL, and then get a gold jacket. Because that's the Manning way. The Manning way is gold jacket, Super Bowl. Gold jacket, Super Bowl. And that's what Arch has to live up to. And I'm not saying that Arch isn't capable of living up to the hype. You know, I don't have a bad word to say about Arch Manning. And we've seen his speed at times too, which is something that Peyton and Eli didn't even have in their dreams, if we're being honest. But the assumption that some make, and whether Schefter said it or not, but this was the quote that was on Bleacher Report from Adam Schefter, supposedly, which we haven't heard it, we just read it today. Quote, first of all, there's no guarantees that Arch Manning's coming out after next year. It sounds like he certainly could be staying around beyond next year. I'm not a college football insider, but none of the Mannings ever went out early, and I don't know with NIL money being what it is why Arch would do that. So all this conversation about tanking for Arch next year, he could be in the draft in 2027, not even next year. I've never understood, and I understand the fun that we have with the tanking conversation. I understand that we could sit here and we could talk about the fun slogans that we've come up with, right? And we've seen quarterbacks that get deemed to be the guy, and a lot of times they don't live up to the hype. Like, just in recent memory, quarterbacks that you heard about, not just for 1 year like Joe Burrow, but quarterbacks that you heard for 2 or 3 years. Trevor Lawrence, right? Trevor Lawrence is paid like he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but he does not play like he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, Andrew Luck was another one. He was on that trajectory. Andrew Luck walked into Indianapolis with a team that I don't even think Hickey, who's a big Colts fan, could even name 3 players on that team from that squad. And he took that team instantly to the playoffs. The unfortunate part is that Andrew Luck's career was derailed because of injuries. So I look at Arch Manning, and for anyone saying, oh, Tennessee should pass on Cam Ward, and the Giants or the Browns should pass on Shedeur Sanders, and those quarterbacks in this year's draft, they're not great, they're just good, and you should wait around till next year, and you should stick around, and you should hope that you get Arch Manning. Well, 2 things. Actually, 3 things. Number 1, what type of year is Arch Manning going to have this year? Number 2, are you going to be bad enough to procure the number 1 overall pick so you without a doubt have it? So if he does go into the draft, can you get him? And then number 3, is the kid even going to declare for the NFL draft? Because I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities with how strategic, with how calculated the Manning family is. Remember, you had the Manning family concoct this plan to avoid Eli Manning from going to the Chargers, the San Diego Chargers, go Chargers, go, at the time, you had them concoct this plan to say, we're not going to the Chargers. It's a bad organization. We want Eli in New York with the Giants. And it worked. When Arch Manning went to Texas with Quinn Ewers there, we had Eli on Radio Row at the Super Bowl. And I'm like, Quinn Ewers is coming back. Does this mean Arch is going to hit the transfer portal? And he emphatically said, Arch will not be going to the transfer portal. You know, he did one of those, like, I can't speak for him, but I'm basically going to say that he's not going into the transfer portal because he doesn't see why he would leave. So this is a family that, even though they expect greatness, their strategy with what they do. And this is a family that I believe whatever plan they elect to implement, even if it doesn't work, there's great reasoning in why they're doing it. So if you're going to sit here and say, you know what, Mike Borgonzi, don't take Cam Ward. You'll be bad again next year. Don't worry, you get the number 1 overall pick. If you're the Giants and you sit there at 3, we haven't had a quarterback since Eli. You know what? Maybe we just find a way to pass on Shedeur Sanders. They're Cleveland, right? You've had 4,000 quarterbacks. I've actually been the quarterback. You know what? We'll pass on Shedeur Sanders. And if your reasoning for doing that is because you think you're going to get Arch next year, what makes you definitely think that Arch is coming out of college? And also, here's the other thing that's on the table. If the Manning family was willing to start a plan for the Chargers to not get Eli Manning, what happens if you're Cleveland? You're sitting there with the number 1 overall pick next year after another dreadful season, and you did not take Shedeur Sanders because of the fact that you wanted Arch Manning, and then the Manning family comes out and says, you know what? We're going to prevent Arch from going to Cleveland. We're going to try to get him to the Giants or the Titans or whoever the team is that's going to be picking at the top of the draft. So what I'm saying here is, if you're a team that's going to pass up on a quarterback because you're doing things for down the road in terms of, we're just going to wait for Arch, there's a good chance that even if he does come on out, there's a good chance you won't even be in position to get him. Remember how the Dolphins, well, it's ironic that they ended up getting him, but it was tank for Tua, tank for Tua, tank for Tua. When that was said, Joe Burrow wasn't on people's radar. Tua Tagovailoa was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick. Now, the Dolphins fell to 5, and they ended up getting Tua still, but there was a quarterback that did go before them. So I don't think you could plan now for next year's draft and make a decision to not draft a quarterback based on someone who I don't know what he's going to do this year, and I can't sit here with a tremendous amount of confidence and say he's definitely going into the draft next year. Now, the one part, if Schefter actually said this stuff, that I don't know if this registers for this situation. I'm not a college football insider, but none of the Mannings ever went out early, and I don't know, with NIL money being what it is, why Arch would do that. I'll just ask this question. Does the NIL money really matter for the Manning family? Do you watch football? Do you see the commercials? I think the Manning family is well off with the money, that even though this is Arch making his own money, that Arch isn't going to go back to college to go make $4 or $5 million, and that be the deciding factor on why he would go back to college. If Arch Manning is going back to college, I don't think NIL money, and maybe I'm being naive here, but I don't think NIL money is at the top of the list. I think it's because more so the Manning family is calculated. They want him to get more reps. They have this plan, and they want him to be ready when he gets that opportunity, which he'll have to be an NFL quarterback. But when it is handed his way, when they say, okay, you're this pick by whoever team, they want him to be able to hit the ground running and not be like these other quarterbacks that go to a place and look like they're a deer, in headlights here. Like that's what they don't want to have happen. So Arch Manning, to me, I think it's the most fascinating storyline of the college football season. I can't even think of a close second, because I would say maybe Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, now going into second year removed from Nick Saban. You got to make the playoff. Could you maybe say Dan Lanning, first year in the Big Ten, won the Big Ten championship, had the disappointing performance in the playoffs where they got smoked? Is that one? Penn State, is this the year that James Franklin lives up to the hype? You could go through the storylines. There's not an individual. The only person that I could say that could go toe-to-toe with Arch is Coach Prime. And even though Coach Prime doesn't have Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter this year, just with the amount of coverage that's on him, but even with Coach Prime, he's not a part of a program right now that people expect to win a national championship. Texas is, with being in the last two, in two different conferences, last two playoff, one in a 4-team, one in a 12-team, they have catapulted themselves into that national championship contending conversation. So that is the biggest storyline here in college football this year, is what is Arch going to look like, and is Arch going to then return for another year at Texas? But I think there's too much ambiguity, even though we all believe he's going to be really damn good. Now, will he be great? That's actually the one thing I agree with Warren Sapp when he walked off the air with us. He said about Shedeur, he goes, I think he's going to be really good. I said, how about great? He goes, you got to prove that you got to be great. And I think that's a big thing. Like Arch Manning, to me, I think he's going to be really good. Am I going to sit here and definitely say he's great and it's a slam dunk? No, I'm not. Because I've seen people hyped up and then them not live up to the hype. But for him, I think there's too many questions in terms of how long this experiment is going to last at Texas for any NFL team, and I don't believe NFL teams will do this, to sit back and go, we're going to pass up on a quarterback now in the first round because we think we're going to be in the position to go get Arch Manning, and then what happens? Arch Manning goes, I'm going to go back to college for 2026. And then you pass on a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. One of them goes on to be great, and you're sitting there the next year, and then you reach on a guy that you didn't want to take because you feel like you got to take a quarterback, and you delayed something that you shouldn't have delayed. So that, to me, would be a gross miscalculation, even though I believe Arch Manning can be special, if NFL teams are going to pass on a quarterback now to then hope that they're going to be in the running to get Arch Manning next year. 18 after the hour, Zach Gelb here with you, live on Westwood One's coverage of Radio Row inside the Convention Center in San Antonio. What we will do right now is we will take a break and make this spring a stylish one with on-trend looks for every occasion when you shop at Kohl's and Kohl's.com. That's Kohl's.com, where families come first. When we come on back, Porter Moser, the head men's basketball coach at Oklahoma, little Boomer Sooner, is going to be joining us on the other side.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, welcome back inside the Convention Center. This is Westwood One Radio Row. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. And now joining us is a good friend of the radio program. He is the head men's basketball coach at Oklahoma, here today on behalf of the American Cancer Society, Coaches versus Cancer, and that is Porter Moser. Coach, how are you?
Zach, my friend, it's good seeing you. You had me on when I was at Loyola, and appreciate you, my friend.
This got to be a little sentimental for you, coming back to this town in San Antonio, because that Loyola Chicago team that you went to the Final Four with, this is where the road did end for you guys.
No, I rolled in last night, and it was nostalgic. And but I will tell you, it was a lot nicer rolling in on a team bus than in an Uber. You know, I'd rather be playing in this thing.
That's for sure. I've always said this. We always remember the great run to the Final Four. But then a few years later, your final season, when you got to the Sweet 16, was that in a way a little bit more rewarding, even though you didn't get further in the tournament, but it was just sustained success that you could get to the second weekend once again?
Zach, it's exactly what it was. And for me, there was, going to the Final Four at Loyola. I mean, the previous 30 years, they had 26 losing seasons, and then we built it up with a great group of guys. And there was opportunities, but I just didn't want to. I didn't want to run from happy. I was happy. I'm from Chicago, but there was something inside me that just didn't want to be a fluke. I wanted to do it again, but it's hard because you're in a one-bid league. You're in a league where you got to win your tournament. And like after that, then we had COVID. Then we won it, the league again, but then we didn't win the tournament. And then in 21, it was a whole new team except two guys. So it wasn't like we did it with a whole new team. And we had to play Georgia Tech the first round. And actually in Chicago, we had to play Illinois was in the second. Everyone wanted to talk about matchup. And I'm like, you guys, Georgia Tech.
Great defensive game. I had the under.
I didn't hear that, Zach. We were like, we have to beat the ACC tournament champion first. And then Illinois was the number one seed in the whole tournament with Kofi and Al, and we were able to beat them. And we thought we had to beat Oregon State. And we came out and they had this huge zone and they were on that crazy run and we lost to Oregon State.
And you guys were in the bubble, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember you tweeted out the bracket that was on the hotel.
Yes.
And you go, this is the hotel room view. And you sent me a few Loyola Chicago shirts, and I had this Photoshop done with the Cam Crutwig mustache. And then my people, they put it up on the hotel, and they said, this is a better view for you, coach. So that was, bad time in the world. Obviously, the whole world was changing, but in a weird way, that the team coming together like that must have been pretty neat looking back at it.
It was the most unique thing because they had the two Marriotts together, and like they had 2 or 3 rooms or floors of ballrooms, and everything. So you're sitting there next to it was, Houston, all like one thing.
Your opponent,
everyone's right there. And I remember though, when we went in, like, all right, if you lose, you got to get your crap and get out of here.
Really?
And it was
all that quick.
Oh, it was like crazy. Like game after game, you're sitting in a hotel. We had everyone walking out with their luggage, their head down, like, get out of our bubble. Get out of our bubble.
I'm a reality TV hunk. It seems like, you get voted off the island, you pack up your bags, and then boom, you're out. Porter Moser here with us. So, you made the tournament at Oklahoma this year. When you look back at the season, how do you kind of reflect?
I think it'll be, you coach to pour into young people. And I just think these guys will have life lessons for the rest of their life because they fought through hard. The ups and downs we had. We started out the season 13-0, 10th in the country. We beat Arizona, second in the Big 12, beat Michigan, won the second in the Big 10, won the tournament, and beat Louisville, second in the ACC. So the other 3 power schools, we had great non-conference wins. We go right into the league. We start out, hey, welcome to the SEC. You're going to start at Alabama. So
fun.
And we go on a run of losing. We're at Florida, at Alabama, at Auburn. Like that's not.
Look at Auburn. Right before the start of the NCAA tournament, they lost 3 out of 4. And I was one of those pundits. And I love Bruce Pearl. I love Auburn. But I was like, they're not trending in the right direction. But it's the SEC for crying out loud.
Exactly right. And that's the thing is there's no good 4-game stretch. There's none. It's all top 25 teams. So mentally, we went from being 10th in the country to getting hit in the face, and we had to pick ourselves up and to fight through hard. And what these guys did on just a daunting schedule. I mean, it's just every single night. You got 3 days later, you got to prepare for another top 10 team.
Where's Oklahoma heading under your watch?
It's a great trending, because of, and I'll be honest, NIL. When the revenue share is actually going to help us. Some people think it's going to hurt them, but it's actually helping us because you have to win in April and May. You have to win in April and May if you want to win in February and March. And it's just the reality of it. And you're seeing it going on right now. So to get your infrastructure of NIL powerful and moving in the right direction helps you win in April and May. And this is what I think we're trending right on the first couple of years. And we were the last ones out the previous 2. And that was, I think we've really done some things. And now I feel like we're going to have more resources in that revenue share and jumped up back-to-back 20-win seasons, got to the tournament. And like all of us, I know that's not my end goal. My end goal is to roll in on a team bus this last weekend.
So, the coaching carousel, it's crazy, right? We saw your name floated out there for Villanova. Even when I Googled you this morning, you hear about A&M and things like that. What do you say to the Oklahoma fan that's like, Coach, are you going to stay here? Are we going to have you here?
This thing with Oklahoma, the last couple of years, you kind of can't seeing that. There's been some things up in the Midwest, but the people in Oklahoma are special. It's one of the greatest places I've lived. It's just, but you're fighting to get the resources right. And we're moving in that right direction. And for what we had to do to fight through hard this year, because it is, but I said about the lessons these guys learn, there's a lot of people that counted us out. There's a lot of people. And I was like Bill Murray on Groundhog Day. Every day I was standing in front of them. You guys, there's a path. There's a path. We got opportunities. Every game's quad 1. And then, you just have to keep bouncing yourself up. But we fought through hard and we're going to continue to fight through that. And there's just such opportunities, such a high vision of what we can do being in this SEC. And and we're looking forward to it.
What do you take away in replacing Lon Kruger? Because, right, John Shire had to replace Coach Krzyzewski. People always say you always don't want to be the guy that replaces the guy. You want to be the next guy. I'm like, no, when you get the opportunity, even if you're replacing someone at a program that has a lot of history, that has a great coach, you're either ready or you're not. Clearly, you have a lot of history, but how about what you learned from, replacing Lon Kruger, and then how you can maybe sympathize? I don't know if that's the right word, with what John Shire's been going through.
The hard part of our relationship with Lon is you're not going to be a better human being than Lon Kruger. That's the shoes of how good of a person and human being he is, and then he's a Hall of Fame coach. But the times were changing. Like when he retired, that's really 8 weeks after I took the job, the transfer portal became a thing.
Yeah.
NIL became a thing.
Different world.
Oh, and hey, by the way, you're going to the SEC in 4 years, and everybody gets an extra year of COVID. All four of those things happened in 8 weeks, and I had 2 players when I got the job. So that's the reality of what's hard on taking over jobs is, this time of year, you might have to, back in the old days, you come to the Final Four, you might have two or three guys sign late, tops, come to the Final Four, see some old colleagues, have a couple pops at lunch. I'm going from here to a Zoom.
I'm not going to lie. I'm surprised you're even here today, because I remember last year you were like, we're in the same convention center, but I'm on a Zoom, just transfer portal.
I'm literally going from here to my hotel room. I have a Zoom for 20 minutes.
Gotcha.
And, but it's our new world. And John, he amazing having, being able to do that at Duke with his and he's such an ambassador because he won a national championship.
Yeah.
Being able to have the opportunity to win a national championship as a player and a coach is special.
What do you think decides Florida and Auburn, obviously seeing both of them this year and going up against them?
The thing that I've been asked this a lot, their positional size is daunting. They're 6'11", 6'10", 6'9", but they both defensively put so much pressure on you. But they also have elite hard shot makers.
Yeah.
Like Clayton, we played Florida.
He's unbelievable.
The first 5 possessions, we got stops. And I'm sitting there feeling pretty good about myself, going, all right. And he comes off a ball screen right to left.
Ticking time bomb.
And just hit like a 28-foot dagger. Then he comes down off the dribble. He hits back-to-back daggers. And we're just like, he just did it again. I mean, their shot-making ability, those two teams, they're both elite positional size. And that's an athleticism.
If Auburn's going to win, to me, it's the defense of Denver Jones, and then Tahad Pettiford's going to have to clear 20 points. That's what I look at, the first two things.
Both those guys, they just have so many different guys. Both teams have, and I'll say this: I told Todd this Golden after we played. Condon was out the game we played, and Hawes,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he played, and he had the game before him. He had like 10 and 10, and then Oregon. So I told Todd, I said, in our Final Four run at Loyola, I said Ben Richardson got hurt in like end of early December. And then he came back in February, and Lucas Williamson was a freshman that I ended up having to play. And then when Ben came back, Ben started again, but Lucas was my 6th man and was unbelievable in our Final Four run. I said, Todd, the fact that Condon's out, this kid is emerging, he is going to help you in March. And I'm telling you, and not that I'm trying to be a prophet, but what the hell, I'll say it.
You want to be my
no one else is saying it. So, but sure enough, did you see how much that kid has been huge? Because they get experience during the season, and then you're deeper.
Besides Clayton, he was their best player on the court.
Oh man, he was
in their last game. All right, I know you got to run. American Cancer Society, Coaches versus Cancer, obviously a great cause. Tell us more about what you're doing.
Just for years, Coaches versus Cancer, the American Cancer Society have been partners. Everybody's been affected. I lost both my parents, and the thing is that the society, human beings, we've overcome things through every decade. We are going to beat cancer. And the technology now to get early detection saves lives. You can get in there, friends, family, early detection can save lives. And it's just, we've got to have our outreach, keep pushing, keep fighting. We will beat cancer with the push, and the American Cancer Society, Coaches versus Cancer are all pushing, and we plead for everyone to jump on board.
Well, Coach, always great to see you, and appreciate you supporting such a great cause. By the way, you in or out on the Bears this year?
Oh, I'm so in. If I had 5 feet, I'd be 5 feet in. I drink the Kool-Aid.
You're preparing for the heartbreak. It's a Saturday Night Live special again.
I'm starting. I was that guy on openings, this kickoff that was at everything. I had my Peyton jersey on. Yeah. I had chili and everything. And that first game just punched me in the gut.
Yeah, I almost just strangled myself there. My headphones just flying out of my ears. But Coach, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Zach, take care, my friend.
There he is, Porter Moser, joining us live on set. I'll tell you, I almost just killed myself while interviewing him.
as I was doing the Bears line from Saturday Night Live, and you basically faked that heart attack, I forgot that my headphones were in, and my large mitts just ripped them right out of my ears, and then the wire went right around my neck. I'm like, oh, this could be a little bit dangerous here. So luckily we were able to recover. All right, we got one more segment to play on Radio Row, on Westwood One's Radio Row, for the Final Four, as the road does end here in San Antonio. When we come on back, we'll check out the latest mock draft from Field Yates. Update time. Let's send it back to our New York City studios. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, the Raiders solved their quarterback situation with the acquisition of Geno Smith and will have some stability for a while, signing him to a 2-year extension. The deal guarantees over $66 million and can be worth as much as $85 million. Trey McBride became the NFL's highest paid tight end, getting a 4-year deal from the Cardinals worth a total of $76 million. And the Cowboys have found Dak Prescott's backup for next season, acquiring Joe Milton from the Patriots along with a 7th-round pick for a 5th-rounder. Baseball today, the Astros have make that a 4-2 lead over the Twins in the bottom half of the 5th, while the Red Sox down the Orioles 8-4, hitting 3 home runs today. Christian Campbell hitting his second, Tristan Casas his first of the season, and Alex Bregman his first in a Red Sox uniform. And the Phillies had some tense moments in the 9th, but hold off the Rockies by a score of 3-1. In the NBA tonight, the Lakers host the Warriors, who are currently 5th in the Western Conference, but just a half game better than Minnesota, Memphis, and the Clippers. The Wolves are in Brooklyn. The Grizzlies will host the Heat. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X and like us on Facebook. Our handle is @INF Sportsnet on X and INF Sportsnet for Facebook.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Take your game day rituals on the road with Marriott Bonvoy. Over 30 hotel brands for every kind of fan. Explore more at MarriottBonvoy.com/NCAA. The Zach Gelb here with you. Final segment on this Thursday edition of our extravaganza live from Westwood One's Radio Row in San Antonio. You know, it's a big discussion what we're doing for dinner tonight. You know, we had the New York deli place last night, which people be like, Howie Deneroff is now looking at me. He's like, you just went to a New York deli? You live in New York, you dope. My friend's parents, they own the deli here. And it was delicious. It was very good. They moved here over a decade ago. Abe and Louise, or Max and Louise, excuse me. The grandson's name is Abe. And I had to go eat, pastrami and burgers last night and a little noodle kugel and some onions. It was my spring training for Passover, Howie, is pretty much what I was doing. I was getting prepared for next week. But tonight, Stu and I were debating between Tex-Mex or do we just go get traditional barbecue, and then we get told there's a media party here, and let's be real, we're media members. Of course, we're not going to pass up on free food and free booze. So, Stu, I think we're going back to another thing tonight where we'll get a big gluttonous meal somewhere, and then we'll walk on the overrated river walk for about for 3 miles, and we'll see if it's any better. One of the folks here behind the scenes came up to me and he goes, "You didn't like the Riverwalk?" And I go, "What's so special about it?" He goes, "You can't get that in New York." And I go, yeah, you can. Now it's going to cost me $30 to get a drink, and here it will cost me $5. But I'm sitting there and I was just not blown away by this Riverwalk. Were you?
I was not blown away by it either. Yeah, it was fine. It was okay. It's fine. It's fine.
It's like the Raiders in the draft.
Oh well, no, it's better than the Raiders in the draft. Let's not joke about that.
Everyone posts their photos like on the Riverwalk. So this morning, while I was waddling over here to the convention center, I did a selfie on the Riverwalk, and I looked absolutely miserable. As a nice, a gondola did come on by and was going down the stream, on this whole river walk. So it was fine. But if people would have thought this was like the greatest thing you've ever seen, I'm just sorry it wasn't. I did run into John Calipari this morning.
It's great.
Which was a very fun encounter. So let me tell you something. I am probably the biggest idiot in the world when it comes to directions, even when they're on your phone and you're following them on the map. Like last night, Stu was my tour guide pretty much. Because you were like, we turn here, we turn there, boom, we're good. We are, a 15-minute walk at most?
Yes.
To here? The GPS just, doesn't load correctly, and I have no clue if I'm turning left or if I'm turning right. So eventually I did the old-fashioned way. I followed the signs, and it just said Convention Center, that way. And I just kept on following it, and then I'm walking, and I hear this distinct voice. And he's like, I got to go to a conference. And then he's talking about his team this year, and I turned around, and I'm like, it's John Calipari. Now, I didn't bring up, a little bit of the mismanagement at the end of his final game. But I said to him, you had a great season this year. I go, your team was fun to watch. They went further than what anyone could have imagined, and we talked a little bit. My father, so when he produced Mike and the Mad Dog, they would have Calipari on all the time when he was at UMass. So, I brought up that connection, and Calipari goes, I don't know if I ever met your dad. But I said to him, but you definitely yelled at him. Because I remember my dad would always talk about this one story. So I guess Christopher Mad Dog Russo once said something back in the day. And then Calipari brought this up. He goes, the transcripts. He goes, bring it up to your old man and text us the dog. The Calipari says, the transcripts. So I guess whatever academic thing that Dog was bitching about with Calipari's team that Calipari took offense to, Calipari went back and found the college or high school transcripts of Christopher Mad Dog Russo. And he was like, could we talk about you as a student? So that was their fights back in the day. So it was cool. We took a little photo. We put it out there at Zach Gelb on Twitter. And I'm sure we'll get it up on Instagram as well as where you can find that. Anyway, before we get on out of here, latest mock draft from Field Yates, who has become one of the creme de la creme mock draft guys. Mel Kiper and McShay, to me, are still the two most recognizable. It's nice to see McShay actually be allowed to do things now post his exit from ESPN. I think the guys at CBS are really good, Chris Trapasso and Ryan Wilson. But Field Yates, I think he's starting to become, outside of McShay, and then I also do like when Mel Kiper just freaks out. But without McShay, I don't think Mel Kiper and that banter back and forth is as great as what it once was. Both guys are really good in their own, but they were at best when they were together. But Field Yates, I always enjoyed his opinion. He was the one that talked me back into Drake May last year when he joined us on the show. So I really have enjoyed Field Yates' work. But this is latest mock draft first round. Cam Ward, number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. I like it. Abdul Carter, 2 to the Browns. I think he's the best player in the draft. I think Cleveland should take Shedeur Sanders. He then has the Giants taking Shedeur Sanders. So just as Adam Schefter is saying, it's starting to feel like Cleveland and the Giants are both going to pass on Shedeur Sanders. Field Yates still has Shedeur Sanders going 3 to the Giants. And as the Patriots taking Travis Hunter. Now, I would want Abdul Carter over Travis Hunter. But I want either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, one way or another, to wind up with the Patriots. Anything else, I'm not going to say it's a disaster, but as a football fan, the way I consume football, even if it ends up being a good pick, it would be disappointing for me. Mason Graham to the Jaguars at 5. I think everyone is predicting Mason Graham to the Jaguars. It's almost like when people a few years ago were predicting Joe Alt to go to the Chargers, everyone has Mason Graham going to the Jaguars. Ashton Genty going to the Raiders, which I think would be a good pick for them. And then their identity would be on the offensive side of the ball with Genty, with Geno Smith, who just got a 2-year extension today. Armin Membu, the offensive tackle out of Missouri, going to the Jets at 7. So the Jets taking another offensive lineman. Jalen Walker would then be, I guess, the first pure – oh, no, we have Mason Graham already, so he's not the first pure defensive player, and Travis Hunter plays both ways. But Jalen Walker, the edge rusher out of Georgia, will be going to Carolina at 8. Shamar Stewart out of A&M going to the Saints at 9. And then wrapping out the top 10, he has Will Campbell going to the Chicago Bears. I think the first 4 picks of this draft are what are most intriguing. And the way I think it should go, should, not will, should. I do believe Tennessee should take Cam Ward with the first overall pick. I then do think the Browns should take Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if they will, though. I think that the Giants should go with Travis Hunter. The Patriots then should go with Abdul Carter. That's how I think it should go. Other takeaways, though, from the Field Yates draft. He has McMillan going to the Cowboys at 12. The Cowboys could use another wide receiver. Will Johnson. He hasn't fallen to 13. And I feel as if that's when Will Johnson is starting to get predicted to go. And that's a trajectory. It's after 10. Before the season, we had Will Johnson on. He was projected to be a top 5 pick. Even later on in the season, I know he had some injuries. He was projected to be in the top 10, and they have him slightly falling out of the top 10 and going 13 to the Miami Dolphins. Tyler Warren's also been a sexy pick going to the Colts at 14. If I'm the Bears, and I understand the Bears beefed up their offensive line with Jonah Jackson, and they got Joe Thuney, and you also ended up getting Drew Dahlman. If the decision's between Will Campbell or Tyler Warren at 10, I know you have Cole Kmet. I would go with Tyler Warren with how much you beefed up your offensive line, but Field Yates says Tyler Warren going 14 to the Indianapolis Colts. Mike Green, the edge rusher, out of Marshall, going to the Falcons at 15. And let's see what else does stand out here. Malachi Starks, who Aaron Murray's very high on, going 19th to Tampa Bay. That'd be a good 1-2 punch. Antoine Winfield Jr. and Malachi Starks in the same defensive backfield. Omarion Hampton, who I read something yesterday, and I don't believe it. I think he's going to be a very good running back. That the evaluators' view of Omarion Hampton may not be as high as us analysts and talk show hosts. Well, in Phil Yates' mock draft, and maybe this could be one of those analysts and talk show hosts, that opinion isn't viewed and reflected what evaluators are saying. But Phil Yates has him going 20th to the Denver Broncos. Then he has Jackson Dart going to the Steelers at 21. That's the only spot where Jackson Dart could go in the first round, and I don't hate it if he ends up going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Outside of that, I would not use a first-round pick on Jackson Dart. Colston Loveland reuniting with Harbaugh, Michigan at 22. I think that's a good landing spot for Colston Loveland. I do not think Colston Loveland's going to be as great as what other people do think when it comes to his projection in the NFL. And then wrapping out the first-round picks, James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee, going at 27 to the Lions. Then he has a projected trade. He is the Patriots trading back in with the Bills to go get an offensive lineman, Josh Connolly Jr. out of Oregon. So then the Patriots would be getting not only Travis Hunter, but they would also be getting an offensive lineman. And then he has the Raiders trading back in and getting Luther Burden III, the wide receiver out of Missouri. And then Jahad Campbell, who I think could go earlier than 32, but he hasn't fallen all the way to the Eagles. And the Eagles got another great player out of the SEC. Jeez Louise, what are we doing? All righty, fun day number 1 here from Westwood One's coverage of the NCAA Tournament's Final Four on Radio Row. Big thanks to Greg Gard. Big thanks to Seth Greenberg, Dennis Gates, Shaka Smart, Porter Moser, and everyone on site here. I'm back in the studio. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.